pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Penny, would you call the roll call, please?
Did you say you need to? Okay. Okay. Mr. Burns. Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Bolton.
Here.
Ms. Meister. Mr. Babel. Not him, and Ms. Jennings. Not here. Okay.
Okay, so we have a quorum. We'd like to, first of all, make a couple announcements before we begin this evening. Sorry for being a little bit late today. It's been a very crazy week here in Cleves, Ohio. You can imagine that. We had some problems getting our video working earlier today, so I think we've got things where they need to be currently. What I'd like to do, our first agenda item tonight is to swear in our new council member. And so Ted, would you come forward, please, out in the center? Ted, if you would turn around and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ted Babel.
I, Ted Babel.
Babel, I'm sorry. Do hereby solemnly swear
Do hereby solemnly swear
that I shall support the Constitution of the United States
that I shall support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I shall faithfully,
and that I shall faithfully, honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties of
discharge the duties of
member of the Cleves Village Council
members of the Village Cleves Council
for the Village of Cleves, Ohio,
for the Village of Cleves, Ohio,
for the term ending December 31st, 2025, to which I have been appointed.
for the term ending December 31st, 2025, or 2025, in which I have been appointed.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you would please take that note. Kevin's going to be a great addition to our council. And Kevin, if you want to say a few words to the public, you have the floor.
And how is your last name pronounced?
Babel.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Everybody pronounces it wrong.
Well, I've known you for a long time,
Yes.
and so I wanted to be sure that I wasn't pronouncing it.
I want to thank everybody having faith in me. I've been around here a long time. I've lived in the village for 42 years now. Involved in numerous things around here: building inspector, fire department, coaching now. So I'm just giving back a little more. So thank you for your support of me. And be careful what you wish for.
You told me that a long time ago.
Yes, I have.
All right, the second thing, it's not on the agenda, I need to make an announcement to our public. We had another council resignation, and that is Sheila Jennings. Sheila has, I guess I'll announce it this way, I think she's engaged. And they have her fiance has a good job on the other side of town. And because of that, she felt like she could no longer continue. She signed a lease over there. It's going to be very difficult to be driving from. Plus, the fact is nothing legal. You've got to live within the village. So we will be back at again interviewing for a council member. At the last council meeting, there were people who approached me to say they would like to throw their hat in the ring. I wouldn't let them do that. They did not apply on time. But now that we have a new process, we will be posting that on our website. I will also be sending out a text message alert to our citizens. I was going to say this in the mayor's report, but I'll just say it now. Before the Styrene leak, we had about 100 people that signed up. Not all of those were Cleves residents. Some of those were Miami Township residents. Since then, we have signed up 179 people. So we're very close to 300. We are delivering letters by hand. I have some volunteers who help me up in the Coleman Woods subdivision. I delivered it in Westgate, and I'll be delivering downtown. My goal is to save on postage. It's a lot cheaper. Besides that, it takes about 6 days. You put something in the mail anyhow. So in that, I delivered a letter that talks about the text alert system, and they have to email to send it in. So anybody that's watching tonight's, be ready for that letter. And they continue to roll in. I have 4 more that came in this evening. I didn't have time to add them. So anyhow, I do want to make you aware of that. So if you are going to apply, you must have lived in the village 1 year. You must be a registered voter. So if it turns out that you're not here that long, you're really not eligible. So I think, Ted, somehow that you got under the wire for 42 years. Yeah,
I was sweating it out.
yeah, I'm sure you would. Okay, with that, we're gonna move on to the motion to approve the minutes from September 11th council meeting. We have that in the packet. If there's any questions or comments that you want to correct in minutes, then I'm sure you'll get down whatever those questions or concerns are. So, if you have no questions, I ask for a motion to approve the minutes from September 11th, 2024 council meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from September the 11th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Motion made by Mr. Walters. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Burns. Any further discussion? Kenny, would you call the roll?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Is it proper for me to,
Yes.
because I wasn't on council, or approved?
So motion passes, and it would be 4 here tonight, 4-0. So we'll move on to the September 26th special meeting. We have those minutes in your packet also. I'd like to do those first. Are there any corrections in the September 26th, 2024 special meeting? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the special council meeting on September 26th, 2024.
Mr. Burns made the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Walters. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Any would you call the roll?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And now we have a motion to approve pay ordinance number 10, 2024. You have that in your packet. Ms. Moser is here tonight. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, please direct your questions to her.
Is those, so are we still catching up on unpaid bills, or are we?
Yeah, I have been, for probably about a month now, I have not been billed up for next year. Yeah. I feel that we are. So you've had no surprises? Yes, I would say in the last month, yes.
The fire to Miami Township, 179.5.
Yeah, that's the final of their,
Is that a one-time thing, or is that just, was that?
well, I did the first, especially after we received the taxes. And I wasn't quite sure, so it was a lower amount that I sent in the township. So I did the balance. I want to make sure I had the number right, so we do it twice. After the first, when we receive the taxes, and then after the second one.
And then also the tip to Three Rivers School District.
Yeah, that was for 2024. So we're
that's
all
correct,
caught
we're
up
all
with
caught
that.
up, correct.
And Rob helped me through that one. So we are all caught up with the school district. And we're supposed to pay the school district after we receive each settlement too. And that will happen in 2025.
So twice a year.
Yes, yes, that's about 48% that the village has to give back to the school of what you receive.
Any further questions?
Yeah, Cindy, are these just paid during the month? Like some of the dates, I mean, they aren't necessarily paid in conjunction with our meetings, correct?
Yeah, this is all what was paid from the last, I have a certain date to give Penny. So I go from like Saturday before the meeting and then do the Saturday. So I have a sequence with her, what I send her.
So some of them are being approved after the fact. I mean, it's not like we can pull any of these and say, don't send it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they're sent.
right, and I don't know,
I mean, payment.
that's what that's what
Yeah.
we-
Like,
I can't wait a month to pay bills or we're in trouble.
well, we used to pay them twice a month after council meeting. I mean,
But you only have one meeting a month.
right, and that was COVID kind of changed everything.
I know I don't pay the Great Township, but I pay every week.
Yeah.
Because of everybody charges you, you don't get it in.
Oh, no, it makes sense.
It is absolutely ridiculous, the finance charges, and so,
No, I understand. I'm just
yeah.
asking.
And I always, with Justin, if I don't know, I will ask, and I don't know how many times I would ask Chuck just before, or I would send it to you guys to say, is this John? I do the John all the time. Is it okay to pay this? And so I don't just pay something to pay it. No, but no, but I think it's good for people to hear that. And now with Justin there, if I am uncomfortable, then I will go to him.
All right.
Any other questions from council? No other questions? Do I have a motion to approve pay ordinance number 10/2024?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Bolton, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bailey. And, so Penny, would you call us all, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. On number 5, JMA Consultants will not be here this evening. She texted me today, she's been sick all day, she has a migraine. And, she will schedule another time for us to come in and explain the contract. And that actually worked out well, because I forgot to ask the council for a motion to approve, Mrs. Meister's, absence today.
Motion to approve Jerry Meister's.
Motion to approve, Jerry Meister's, absence by Mr. Walters. Is there a
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Bolton. Any discussion? Any call the roll?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Hey,
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the administrator's report. Mr. Haley has been very busy. I asked him if he was having fun yet. Yeah, that's about what your reaction is.
Definitely came in my office and stuff on the floor. We've had a busy month. Just gonna run through a recap of some of our main events. Update on the train car chemical leak. There's federal investigation, so there's an ongoing federal investigation of the chemical leak to determine the cause and new practices moving forward. I'll update you as I'm updated on that. I was informed by Whitewater Township administration that there will be an after-action review to discuss planning and new best practices. I was told that I'll be included in that process. Forward to that. Out of our meeting last week, we determined that the chemical leak did come from an INEOS rail car. So INEOS is the owner of the rail car tanker and the chemical involved. It was stored just over the bridge there, 150 and 128. Been there for an extended period of time because INEOS didn't have the ability to receive it. We were advised by the railroad that they're no longer allowing INEOS to store anything on their railway. They have to receive it right away. Enios was invited to the meeting last week, but they did not attend. As far as our losses, I've invoiced for expenses and revenue loss. $8,886.14 was invoiced for the waterworks expenses, which includes water pump, activation of an additional high service pump, and our overtime. We determined that $1,477 and revenue was lost. Parks being closed during that duration, so we've invoiced that as well. To finish up on the chemical leak, I'd like to recognize our waterworks employees for their participation in the emergency. Their efforts were incredible during the emergency. Typically, I don't look at waterworks employees as first responders, but they truly stepped up in this event and in a critical moment. Due to their swift actions, they were able to open a hydrant and get water onto the tanker truck as temperatures were climbing to an extremely dangerous level and an explosion was imminent. The fire department tried to open that hydrant. They were unable to. Our waterworks employees responded down there into the hot zone with the chemicals still spilling, and they were able to open that hydrant. So without that, who knows what would have happened, but they wouldn't have been able to put water on it like they did. So my hats off to them. But even after that, they stayed up all night and at the plant, they were able to get a third high service pump up and running, which not only provided adequate water for the emergency, but also to our residents, so they could shower and still use their daily consumption. So I just want to thank them for that. We have a group of dedicated employees, and I don't know that they're recognized often enough, and they did a superb job here. So thank you to them for their efforts. Moving on, a snow removal agreement. I executed that about 2 weeks ago for 6 properties located in the 500 block of East State Road. It's directly across from the Coleman Woods entrance. I spoke to Service Director Nuff on that. We've done it for several years, and this was just a renewal, so it's nothing new. The residents were extremely appreciative of that. So thank you, John, for agreeing to do that again this year. Update on AM Legal. So AM Legal is the vendor we're using to codify our ordinances locally. Ordinance submission. All ordinances have been submitted to AM Legal as of last week for review and codification. The questionnaire has been completed. The questionnaire is a requirement before they'll take on the project being working. I have an estimated completion of around 6 months from last week before everything will be codified, put on their website, and published. Just some recognition that's due there. A special thanks to Penny, our clerk, for her hard work on it. You tackled a project that's been needed for many years, and it's always been passed off. You know, when I was here as a police officer, we talked about forming a whole committee to do that. You did it on your own, faster than any of us anticipated, so thank you for that. Residential handicap parking ordinance. The plan in November to present this to council, as long as there's no other issues that come up, but I've been collaborating with our law director, the mayor, zoning commission, and code enforcement to develop an ordinance process for residential handicap parking. Basically, it's an application that residents can submit to possibly obtain a handicap placard on village roadway outside their residence. So there'll be a formal application and process. They'll have to, prove the need. They have the absence of, off-street parking, but we're working towards formalizing that. Out of safety committee, we discussed. Go ahead, sir.
I have a quick question with respect to the handicap. Do they not need to have a physician's approval or show the need through a physician to have a placard first before that's issued? It's not like we're going to take it on and say we approve this.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the draft ordinance that I have right now, it does require a handicap placard, and they have to submit that as part of their documents, supporting documents with their application. So there'll be a renewal process. It just ensure they haven't moved out or they're no longer handicapped. So there'll be a renewal process, and they have to prove their need for that.
So is it a handicap placard that they put in a car, or is it a sign outside the residence?
It would be a sign outside the residence, barring them having off-street parking. So in some of our streets where there's just an absence of off-street parking, it would give them the ability to park close to their residence. And again, it'd be a case-by-case basis. Ultimately, this will be presented to the ordinance for council to adopt. There are other municipalities that have this, and we do have a need for it for our residents. We have quite a few requests. We're just looking to formalize that process so it's standard for everybody.
The placard they get from Pure and Motor Vehicles.
Correct.
So that's in essence, if they've got that, then they can just prove the need for the placard outside the
Yes.
residence. Okay.
A security system, we discussed this in safety committee, and it was approved coming out of there. Our proposed system will be for the municipal building and police department here. We're looking at a 16-channel system with 8 total cameras. 4 of those will be interior cameras, 4 will be exterior cameras. One of the cameras will have audio video capabilities that will be installed in the lobby. The necessity for audio video is really a safe place for internet sales exchanges, as other communities have, but also like a custody exchange area, safe places recorded with video and audio so people feel safe to come here and exchange or do business. The estimated cost for the equipment, accessories, wiring is around $2,500. So to tackle the installation portion of it, I have some experience in that. I'm willing to do it. I would need help. Mr. Merkel has offered assistance, and we can talk more on that later. There may be some additional compensation, but all in all, the project would not exceed $5,000 to purchase it and have it installed. Moving on, our general liability insurance. I've been working on our annual review and renewal. One of the issues that came up was an IT security issues with our firewall, IT security. Those issues were identified in 2023, and I've learned that they were not addressed by my predecessor. I've scheduled a meeting with an IT contractor to resolve these issues as promptly as we can. Employee bonding came up. We're mandated by law to bond certain employees. As now Ms. Oser, Ms. Williams, and the mayor are bonded. I'll need to be added to that bond, so I'm working on that. Last but not least, on insurance is the Christmas Walk rider policy. I've been working with Councilman Burns on selecting the inflatables that we want for the Christmas Walk. Once we have those selected and finalized, I'll move forward on a rider policy for the Christmas Walk. I'll provide that to the school. Moving on, Alta Fiber. We've been transitioning our phones and internet to Alta Fiber. That has been a cumbersome process, at least with the waterworks. As of now, we've completed the maintenance building. I believe yours is working well, John. Waterworks is up and running. We did have a struggle with our phones for about 6 days. If anyone tried to call, I apologize. The IP address would change every time we get it fixed, and it would cut back on. It's been up and running for 2 days now. We haven't had any problems, so knock on wood. Next step of that project will be coming here to the municipal building. We'll be changing the phones and internet. Some of you have asked about Wi-Fi capability here for your laptops. As part of that changeover, we will be putting a new router in with a guest Wi-Fi and staff Wi-Fi connection. And then last is just modernization and policy updates. Cindy and I have been working on getting purchasing cards for certain village employees, just to aid in timely purchasing and day-to-day business. Before we issue any cards to any employees, I'm going to roll out a purchasing card policy and user agreement. Additionally, I'm working to update our employee handbook as I discussed in committee meetings. So I'd look to have that done by the end of the year. One of the topics that we need to cover there, just for liability purposes, and also kind of coming out of my review with insurance, is policy on contractors. Basically develop a village policy for contractors and contracted services that addresses risk transfer and insulation to the village, which will include indemnification agreements, hold harmless, insurance requirements and verification, and also verifying that contractors are trained appropriately. That's my report. That's what I've been working on to update the council and the community. Do you have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Sorry, first, nearest and dearest to me. Will your rider policy is part of ensuring the inflatables for Christmas Walk is Are the same documents going to cover our parade activity? Is that part of our existing insurance anyway? Because we haven't been the host of a parade probably in some time, unless we speak for the league.
Right, so, yes, so that wouldn't be, that's included on our general policy that we currently have. The school would need to be added on as one of our properties, but that wouldn't change our rate. So yes, for the walk itself, covered under our current general liability. For the inflatables, we do need a rider policy, which is $500 application plus whatever comes out of underwriting for the day. And that's contingent on me having the specific dimensions and inflatable devices we select.
Which your answer probably not. And just if I can roll. All right, is it on the same subject?
I got a question about the insurance while you're talking about that.
Yes, sir.
Is there insurance on council members and mayor?
So the bonding would be for, not for individual council members, but the mayor is covered. Anybody, myself and the mayor are covered, and anybody that handles money. So, fiscal officer, Ms. Williams, and then Pam, and then our water works board is also covered. And that's the recommendation of our insurance providers to bond those individuals.
Any other questions, Council?
Yes. If you, having the village administrator and the village solicitor install hardware is a very peculiar proposition. Is there a reason you arrived at that? Did the service department decline that work? Are contractors unavailable?
I don't know, so, yeah, I understand it's peculiar, and I think that back to our conversation the other day, it's like, kind of a jack of all trades. So if we were to hire a GC to perform the work, we're looking at a much higher cost, especially to drill through concrete, and install the new hardware outside. I don't believe that our maintenance department has the time, especially with the fall projects that they've already taken on with the ball field and cleaning out the Lower Creek ditch. We want to delay it. John, is that something you think you can do? Is run, Cat 5 or Cat 6 wiring with the endpoint connections and okay, we can look into that.
You need help.
I said you're crazy.
You need help with these connectors and stuff like that.
We have an electrician in the family.
I'm actually certified. Yes, I was. I'm retired now, but that's no.
To answer your question, Kevin, I was looking for a way that we could get it done timely and efficiently and at the lowest cost.
You mentioned additional costs, so that seemed like something to question. Then going back to your interview, one of the questions I submitted was how you prepare for us an auditable trail of what you've been up to. Very nice report today, thank you. It's only 1 month in, it's been a crazy month. But I just want to nudge you and ask you, have you considered how that system is going to work, or have you started to implement a system that can be exposed to us to detail the activities that you're managing or that our employees are?
Absolutely. So I started that week 1. I do an end of week report to the mayor every week. Just not of everything that I do, but hot topics. So I provided that to Mayor Burkholz at the end of each week. I can send those to council as well if you'd like them. And I figure my monthly review could be my administrative report. If you'd like me to add anything additional, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, the purpose for questioning is just a minor bit of accountability. Have you started with? Okay, the answer is yes. I think we'll have to see it before. Right. We haven't been this critical of anybody's activities probably ever, so it may be unfair, but as long as it's in mind, I'm happy for that.
I have a question. Because I know I received some information from Mr. Babel. Last weekend, there was a major water main break out on East Miami, and that was a very dangerous situation. And he had concerns about ocean training for our maintenance employees and our waterworks employees. And I'm going to turn it over to him to explain why.
Thank you. If you haven't seen it, this is the picture that, and I will say, Chuck, I'm glad that you started this, the Three Rivers is this back, because it gives the people, when you do something nice, something bad, rare just a little bit. Okay. Just a little back knowledge on me. I've been an ocean instructor for electricians union for 14, 16 years. Okay. This little picture here, there was more than 4 violations, if not 6 violations involved in this. You know, my question was back to brings me to insurance. This here, okay, this was a contractor that was subcontracted out. What liability if something would happen on this job site? What liability does council have? Because this is a contractor that council, the village hired.
These waterworks hired, but
That is,
it's a valid point because I believe we're all liable.
exactly, well, that was gonna be my question because I know what the answer is.
Yeah, okay.
The perfect example is this ladder needs to be at least 3 foot above. The water needs to be drained out. You can already see there's a cave in. And if you notice the news, when they do cave-ins, everything stops, ocean comes out. So the water leak could have barely keep going on this whole time. There's not a barricade in the ditch. This ditch has to be shored up or it's got to be tapered out. I'm pretty sure there wasn't any fencing around the project to keep access away.
Where did this take place?
This is just past,
But where, location wise?
if you go out to, before you get to Audrey's Frogtown Bar, it's on the left-hand side, you've got a swingy landscaping. And it was a small area, it's right by the, trailer court. They were expecting this to be a small job. They were not expecting it to go almost 8 hours. Right? So, and I was notified, I know Justin was, I'm not sure how you got notified, but I think we were both notified because he called me while I'm trying to type something up. And, put it out so people knew they were gonna be out in water. And they were looking at maybe 2 hours, 3 hours max. Well, that line was much deeper than what they had anticipated. You can see how deep it is. I had a lady ask me how long was it gonna be, and that's why I went out. I don't know, because the waterworks was not present. It was all done by a contract. And there's no question, you showed the boxes in there. There's anything like that. I'm not their boss. You know, I took what information I had. I spoke to John about it. And I got in on Monday morning. And that was before you and I had a conversation. We knew there was a problem. And so that's gonna have to be corrected so it doesn't happen.
Like, I would suggest that to protect the village, that we require any contractor going to work with the village, please, to provide documentation of training for their employees and documentation of who the competent person is on the job site. And that competent person definition, if Bob verify this to me, is a very important designation. He's responsible for all safety on that job site. And he becomes personally liable for that safety. So, and this is just a way for us to cover Cleves to make sure that our contractors are doing what they're supposed to do to protect Cleves.
So it was actually outside the village of Cleves limits, but within our waterworks territory, correct?
And they are being employed by us,
By the waterworks.
which is still Cleves.
Well, yeah, but I mean, okay, because we service an area well outside our village. And, yes, so, We used to have a board of public affairs that dealt with those kind of things. We don't anymore.
You gotta go to the administrator.
Yes, exactly.
Here, you have a question.
Yeah, I do. I have a question with respect to, if I understand, Ted's concern that we're liable. I would suggest then that we don't do business with companies that don't have a certificate of liability. I know anybody that does work for anybody has to have a certificate of liability, whether they're OSHA trained or not. Rob, do you know personally we are liable? If for some reason,
Anytime something happens, everybody's liable. I mean, if it's put on by Cleves, obviously they're gonna come after everybody that's anybody at Cleves. I mean, and that's, and where are they gonna find fault, is a competent person that's on the site is gonna be like number one.
well, and again, we're addressing issues that don't meet OSHA standards, for that fact, safety requirements, but your certificate of liability covers those.
Yeah, but if something were to happen because it's not being done, that I think's the bigger liability.
It's reducing our liability is what it comes down to. Even though there might be, like Rob said, some liability on the village, if we've done our due diligence to the best of our abilities, we've reduced our exposure rate considerably.
Well, let me ask the question, why wasn't our building inspector there present for the stop work order then, if he knew for that fact that we didn't put a,
I don't know anybody who knew it.
well, I'm just saying, if that's.
It's also in Miami Township. It's not in the village of Cleves. I don't know that our building inspector has authority.
So, it just, was our waterworks on
They were not on the same.
they were not on the scene at all. That goes back to what I was explaining about the training, where if our department has no, they can stop it.
I would suggest on our water department then be on with contractors.
Right.
And they themselves issue a stop work order if they're not gonna meet the standard.
Exactly.
And to go back to my report, this is where the contractor policy comes from. I think it puts the emphasis on it is the incident that happened Saturday. Thursday, when I met with our insurance provider, we actually discussed this. I have literature from them with best practices when I adopt the policy. So to your point, Mr. Walters and Mr. Babel, we'll be looking to formalize a village-wide policy, whether it's contracted by the administration, parks department, waterworks, or our service department. Any contractor, subcontractor that we utilize will complete the required forms. We'll fill out a certificate of liability, we'll have an indemnification agreement, or harmless clauses, and we'll review that annually. So that's where we are, is not where we should be, but we're addressing that. So we will have a formal policy and procedure moving forward. Additionally, I've looked in with Bureau of Workers' Comp and Safe Ohio for awareness level training, for trench safety and traffic control, which is another issue for both our maintenance and waterworks department. I understand that we could all do better. We've highlighted what we need to do to improve, and we're working towards that.
Any other questions? The next thing before public comments, that I don't know, it's gonna require a lot of conversation here tonight. And I know you guys got an election, I think you got an electronic copy of the FEMA ordinance. I know Mr. Walters, you contacted me about it too today. The biggest issue here is we've got a deadline. The last time, I mentioned this earlier meeting, this ordinance gets revised every 20 years. So last time was 2004. And Justin and I were to have a meeting. I'd had a meeting with previously, but I wanted him to be part of the meeting too. Things got crossed, but I think we're getting it rescheduled. Is that correct?
We do have a reschedule, we just need to confirm it. I think they're just waiting on your confirmation. That'll be at the end of this month, the end of October. The reason that I had this put on the agenda this evening is, one, to get you, the ordinance is lengthy, so I wanted to get it to everybody electronically, so you have time to read through it. If you have any questions or concerns, do read through it, please send them to me, and I'll address it individually with you. Two of the things that come up with this ordinance are higher standards. One of those is freeboarding. So to explain freeboarding in layman's terms would be if a building's torn down, we have to be a building's torn down and rebuilt, it has to be 1 foot above the floodplain, whatever's outlined by FEMA. We can freeboard, which is a higher standard, and we can set 6 inches, a foot, or even 2 feet higher. So let's say the flood elevation is 140, new construction comes in, it has to be 141. We could add freeboard to that and say it has to be 141 and a half, or even 142. The other higher standard to consider is on page 9 of this contract, which discusses recurrent substantial damage. I don't know that we have the administrative capabilities to do what's required as far as oversight with this, but it's worth reading on the optional coverage, which is highlighted. Basically, that says in a 10-year period, and this is, it'll add on. So if you have a flood this year, and that's 5% of your value, and you have a flood next year, it's 10%. Over the course of 10 years, if you have damage that's 25% or more of your market value of your home, you'd have to tear down, bring it out of the floodplain, and rebuild it. Those are really the two main topics to consider here with this ordinance. As Mayor Burkholz said, we are coming up on the deadline. This has to be done by December. My goal would be to have it adopted next meeting. So it should be in your inbox. If it's not, let me or Penny know. We'll get it to you. If you could read through and have any questions or concerns before next meeting, so we can move forward on it then.
Any questions? Just to add on that, the biggest key is we don't do it, our residents do not get flood insurance. And that's critically important to make sure we get this done in time. At this point, I'm going to move on to the public comment session. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, letting you finish the thought there. I'm seeing a bit in here about the maps. Are updates to the map around us in our current floodplain, are they audited at this time? Like, is our 20-year cycle, does it have anything to do with how they're doing their geological surveys, how they're defining things, or the dirt we've moved around? For instance, my house on Cages is 80 feet lower than where it is in reality, because it's built on fill. And there's been significant construction in the last 20 years like that. Do those changes in reality and maps impact this at all? Do you consider those? Or just a fanciful thought of Kevin Burns?
That's a good point. I'm not sure what your conversation was with him.
We didn't have that conversation in our brief meeting. It's a good question, and when we do meet, I'll ask that question. I'll get you an answer.
Mr. Walters brought up similar questions today, and I believe they are available. Back when I first met with them, they gave me some links to look at, and I did it, and I haven't been back in since. So we're going to be meeting. We'll figure it out. Make sure your questions addressed.
And I think about it in the context of excuse me. In terms of actual flood threats in Cleves, I think we know what they are. If we don't take care of Morgan Creek, there's more impact back. The principal impact is probably back there on Lawrenceburg, Bill, whatever, another community thing, out by the back of it. That seems to be where our flooding happened. And the context that I come with is I looked at the NOAA, National Oceanographic Administration data, and their sensors up in Miamitown. I think that's the closest one. Spent some time understanding what impacts our park. And I looked at their charts, and what they call the 100-year flood happened 5 times in the first 4 years I started paying attention to this. The geology is factually different than it was even 15 years ago. There's just more runoff, and the river rises quicker, it hits our park. I don't know that it hits our houses that need to be insured and such. So it's, my question may not just be about cages, it may be about what is the floodplain as well.
And he did provide me an interactive map that when he was sharing a screen, but that's probably something that I should ask him to send. When I get that, I'll send it to you. I do know this area does fall within that 100-year plain, and so there's different areas and pockets. So I'll get that for you to review. But to say where do they establish their elevation? Are they using cages? Are they relying on that as accurate data? I don't know. I'll get that answer for you as well.
This probably is well below the 100-year flood, it's probably below the 10-year flood level, but there's a railroad that acts as a dam. So,
Right.
On the line of the maps, if we do get updated maps, is this something that we can put on our website? I think it would be kind of good to have that.
I'll ask if we can
I'd like
publish
to
it.
see it.
Once, if
Well-
I can get them, can we publish it?
I don't see a reason why, well, make sure that we can publish them. I just know that the fact that years ago, I would get phone calls from insurance companies saying, does this street fall within the floodplain? And they would have to obtain floodplain insurance if that fell in there. So I think if we put those maps up there, it might be good.
Yep, I'll work on that.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public?
Yeah, when the map is available, it will be available for us all to see. Because we had to have a company come in, we were told by our house insurance that we had to get to. And we were above it, and we actually had to prove it, and paperwork. to prove it. But it's just, change, what's going on with that.
When I communicate with our rep next time, I'll see if he has any of those maps that he can provide me. I would assume the answer to that is yes, and I'll have it put on the website.
Okay, perfect.
We used to have maps that I can remember.
The flood zone is 502, which is River Road. That's what the flood. That one you remember?
Yeah.
If anybody is familiar with the Cincinnati area geographic maps, one of the toggles you can turn on is the floodplain. And actually that gives you a little larger picture of where these areas are. Our area in here, the flood, and as far as Cage's elevations for FEMA's been around long before Cage's. They've had those maps well before Cage's developed those contours. Does FEMA use Cage's contours today? I don't know. Are they wrong in some places, Kevin? Yes, they are. I've caught errors. Anyway, 490 is our elevation in this area. From what John tells me in the park, they've exceeded 490 quite a bit. And then over on this side of 50, 490, there's a lot of houses below 490. So, and as long as we have pipes going across 50, even if there wasn't a deluge of water over here, if the river comes up over on the other side of 50, and we have pipes connecting the two, the water will just come over to this side and rise to 490 and flood to whatever elevation the river's at.
You'll recall that over there where they've got the business down where Skyline was and where the school was, that was all in the floodplain zone. And now it's been elevated out of the floodplain zone so that it does. That's where the maintenance department used to have all their equipment and so forth, and it used to flood out.
Well, the school had to be elevated.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And all it's done is push the water farther in the.
Correct. So it affects South Miami down. South Miami to where we push all the water up into the residents' backyards and in their building, or in their homes and so forth. So that's the reason why I wanted the map, because that's plugged back out of the floodplain zone. And if they're still paying flood insurance, maybe they don't need it at all. To your point, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? We're gonna move on to the public comment session. I'd like to read some things first. First of all, if you want to speak tonight, you need to register over with Penny. She'll get your name, your address. Then I just want to read this statement. The village facilities values community input, encourages participation. While we welcome passionate viewpoints, we ask that all comments remain respectful and free of disruptive behavior. Our goal is to maintain a constructive and professional environment. And we thank everybody for their cooperation. Now you can talk on anything that's on the agenda. Notice, for example, there's going to be some resolutions or ordinances that are going to be voted on tonight. Those should be out in the audience. So at this point in time, if you would like to speak tonight, I think Darlene has asked to go first. She's with the Police of America. So have you registered yet, Darlene?
I have.
Just come up with the podium.
Good evening. My name is Darlene West, and I'm the local coordinator for the Grease Across America campaign at Middle Grove Cemetery. I'm here for a couple reasons this evening. One, to thank you all. After talking with the mayor and Ms. Penny, you've been kind enough to post our information on your website concerning the campaign for Grease Across America. I do invite all of you to consider saving the date of December 14th, which is a Saturday at noon. We will be doing our Grease Across America campaign program that day and placing over 1,500 wreaths on the graves of veterans and first responders at the Cleves Council. It has become quite a community project over the last 10 years. We started out with 600 wreaths 6 years or 7 years ago. We are close to obtaining our goal this year. Unfortunately, every year our goal has to be increased because we lose veterans and first responders here in our community. We have the support. It's a wonderful program that we present that day. We have participation from the Scouts, from the American Legion, the high school chorus sings, the color guard from Diamond Oaks presents the colors for us. And we have enough volunteers that over the last few years, we've had over 250 people participate. In order to honor all of our veterans, and the campaign theme is to remember those who have served, to honor those who are serving now, and to educate those who will serve in the future. We have had a major successful campaign so far. I will say that we are about 300 weeks short. Now, what I'm here to suggest to those who are part of the community, we get tremendous support from organizations, whether it's the Legion, whether it's the Knights of Columbus, the Kiwanis, the Women's Club, and groups of that sort. We have total support from those groups. I'm reaching out to individual families. If we would have 100 families for the money in the township area commit to a $34 expense. Wreaths are $17 a piece. But we have an agreement with Wreaths Across America that if you buy 2 wreaths, we get a third one at no cost. So $34 actually results in 3 wreaths for our campaign. If 100 families would reach out and make a $34 commitment to our campaign, we would meet our goal this year. We have faith in the community. They've always risen to the occasion and we've managed to make our goal every year. And I hope that that's something that we'll be able to do this year. On your website, you're kind enough to put our website address, which is specific to Maple Grove Cemetery. So if you do wreathsacrossamerica.org/OH0221, it comes directly to our campaign. Or we even have a QR code now that you've been kind enough to post for us. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to make a commitment. What we've said to school children over the years is, hopefully, you know the veterans in your family. Close your eyes, envision those people. Now, they may not be buried here in the area, but hopefully somebody who is taking care of the cemetery where they are buried we'll make sure that they are honored that day. So if your veteran isn't buried here, we hope that you and your family will reach out to take care of someone else's veterans who might not be buried here at Maple Grove. Our campaign runs through Thanksgiving, and we hope that many of you will consider joining us in honoring our veterans. But I do appreciate the posting on your website of all of our information. I do hope some of you will be able to join us on December 14th at 12 o'clock. So thank you for the chance to share this.
Any questions or comments from council?
Thank you.
Darlene,
Yes.
this is, the letters we're distributing has on the backside, so they have our text message, and on the backside it has your letter.
Anything I can do to pass on information to them. Thank you so much.
Anybody else want to speak?
I had some questions.
You have those?
Yeah, I signed the paper. I didn't know if I needed to wait until we discussed.
You can say anything you
Um,
wanted to say.
You know, I went through the zoning thing. I got the email from Gary Monday. He came down yesterday and actually brought the paperwork. I had a couple questions about that. Really don't feel like I had adequate time, you know, I hadn't had time to discuss with my lawyer because I hadn't had time to do anything. But one of the questions was a variance. What you had mentioned was when we discussed it, that only goes with me owning the property. If I go to sell the property, then they won't be able to park cars unless they come to get a variance.
That's correct.
Okay, so they would have to go through the whole process. Is that variance, as long as I'm in the property, the variance is there? Or is that as long as I just run the body shop? If I lease that building out to somebody, would that go with the body? Leasing it out since I still own the property?
The property goes, the residential is gonna remain residential. And it's gonna use, you're gonna use that property for your business. You lease the property out, that's a whole different scenario. You have wanted this for the Cleves Auto Body, is that a true
Correct.
statement?
Correct.
So if you lease your building out, is that not changing the course of what you're gonna use that property
If
for?
I sell the business to somebody else, but lease them the building, that's still the same business there, but somebody else
necessarily.
running it.
If they come in and they wanna do something different other than Cleves Auto Body, that changes that.
But that's what I'm saying. If I sell the business to somebody and they come back in and do Please Auto Body, it still goes with the body shop.
You have two parcels of land.
Right.
You've combined those.
Correct.
You sell them individually, that's up to you. I mean, you
No, I'm
can't tell you how to
saying
run
if
a business.
I'm just saying if I leased it out, I'm not saying, you told me if I sell it, it's different.
Correct. So again, so if you're leasing it out, depending on what that lease is like and what you're gonna allow those people to use the property for, that's altogether different. You came looking for a variance originally. That's how I said it and talked to you about it as well, as opposed to a zone change. And that's what the commission voted on, was for the variance to allow you to do that under certain restrictions and stipulations. So now you're coming and saying, if I do this, is it the same thing that we want to do it for?
No, I was confused because it's been over a year. And if you go back to the emails, it was rezoning, but I thought that's what we had asked for and that's what we discussed and you explained that to me. And, you know, like I said, I haven't had time to really discuss this because, you know, at the end of the day, a variance is for me and I'm trying to get some clarification that if I lease it out, you know, it's been Cleves Auto Body for 35, 40 years that I know of, if not longer, and it's always
So
been
what
a
kind of
body
business
shop.
would you do if you were to lease that parcel of
The same
land?
thing that's there, that's what the building's for. I mean, I wouldn't lease it out to somebody building boats or a landscape company. That changes what the thing is. I mean, the value in the building, value of leasing it out would be a body shop. Not what I would do, but I'm just trying to look towards the future.
You're asking me, you're asking Cleves, when I say me, you're asking Cleves to make a hypothetical situation. If you do this, if you do that, until that circumstance is, I can't answer that question. We offered, the commission voted unanimously to offer a variance for you allowed to do your business, to park the cars on there as we discussed with the residents. True statement?
Yep.
And so that's the variance that they said they felt was best suited, as opposed to just, getting the umbrella and saying, we're gonna have it forever a business. Okay, we did it specifically because you and the residents came to agreement that this was something that you could all agree upon, correct?
Correct, I would make a
So
stipulation.
now you're asking if we lease this, which was never part of coming up to the commission, that you would lease this out.
Because all the paperwork says we were rezoning it, and then you,
No, absolutely not, because this is what the commission agreed to, and we talked about that, if a variance was granted,
It's not a rezoning.
that's not a rezoning, that's true.
but
It's
if
still
you,
gonna be R. It's still gonna be zoned R, but a variance has been issued.
A variance has been issued so that he can continue to park the cars there within reason, with the restrictions that they agreed to with the residents, so that Barry could do his
But
business.
the zoning is not being
The
changed.
zoning is not being changed.
yes, my confusion was all the paperwork said we were rezoning, and then I get the thing Monday and it says we're doing variance. And everything discussed in the
Well,
meeting, because
the
I mentioned to you, I thought that's what we were doing.
Well, let me quickly do this one. The commission denied the zoning and said they thought a variance was best suited.
If the commission denied his zoning, his option is to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
He can do whatever he
Because
wants.
everything that I've read, I know we're going on old school here, but everything I've read, the only entity that can grant a variance is the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's what it says.
That's not a true statement, because council is
If you look in the book here, underneath the direction of the Board of Zoning Appeals, it's their authority to grant the variance.
But not to change the
but not to
zoning.
change zoning.
But
Council-
you're granting a variance, which isn't your authority. That's the authority of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Your authority is to deny his appeal, deny his,
It was denied
Property
and the
change.
variance was granted in lieu of the residential change.
but his option now is to appeal to the Board of Zoning
And
Appeals.
they can either uphold it or deny it, but in theory, council is the only one and has to allow for the variance to be adopted through the ordinance. The zoning commission makes a recommendation. They can't grant a variance and say that's what we're gonna do, because council has to vote on that.
But the variance has got to come through the Board of Zoning Appeals, then brought back to the council, not through planning.
Rob, probably understand.
Zoning appeals can issue the variance. The zoning commission and council can vote on giving him a variance on a conditional purpose as they're doing. And the variance does run with the land for that same and similar, because it's tied to the property, not him so much.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So that's why the document is so specific in terms of what the conditional variance is based on. So if you sold the property, it runs with the land.
The variance stays with the
The
land.
variance runs with the land, just like a covenant.
If it's changed if they can't come in and put a manufacturing facility. there.
No,
And that's why the conditional uses were so specific in the contracts.
That's what I'm saying.
So, but if he sold it and someone came in and ran an auto body shop, they would be able to do what he does on that same
That's
property.
what I agree with that point, yes.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Because that affects the value. You said that if I left, then it would change, but I understand. The only thing really that, technically towards the manual, my understanding is if that changes from anything besides a body shop over a 2-year period, then it's no longer considered, grandfathered in.
Right, it's conditional upon the document and the negotiations that you have with the planning commission and the vote of council, if they vote.
But the variance now stays with that property.
Correct. Variance runs with the land, just
So if I
like a
sell
covenant
property-
or anything else, any easement, anything like that.
The official zoning is not being changed.
Correct.
And I don't need it to be, because I just need to know that.
And the legal concept is it's tied to a property for the specific purposes that it brings and talking to the residents, more or less, does it make sense for the community? Does it make sense for the residents? Does it make sense for the owner? And that is what's hammered out. So zoning doesn't have to be changed because that could change a lot of other things, but specifically for what he has asked and you guys have discussed, That's what's listed in that form.
And so if he wants to lease it and somehow that changes the course of business,
Well, that's not the conditional variance.
that's what I'm saying.
So if it's a body shop, as you said,
That's what it
then,
has to
and
say.
you sold it as a body shop or you leased it as a body shop, to do those same specific things within the conditions are valid.
And
If somebody else moved in there and wanted to build furniture, it's not the same building.
Correct.
And that's what it gets into, because it has to be used for that conditional use. That's why the body shop's there is residential. That was my understanding.
Correct.
So if it changes or anything, or if it's closed down for over 2 years period, then it cannot be opened back up. That's what I understood in the planning.
Oh, it doesn't,
So
it doesn't
anyway-
say that. was-
Anyway, I understand it. So that would be the answer to my question.
And Eric, I mean, again, if you don't like this decision, you're free to.
I'm fine if I can sell it with the thing, that's fine. I just, that was the only thing that I thought would affect the value, that if we got the variance and I go to sell the property, and they can't park cars back there, that kind of affects the value.
It runs with the land, just like if you issue someone an easement across the property.
Right.
That runs with the land.
Right.
So the next person that buys the land that has an easement, yes, and the easement stays on the property anymore.
Right, so the property we're talking about, is on the alleyway, and if it's residential, you can't build on it anyway, because it doesn't put in a street address.
Yeah, I know where it's at. I just, but for the specific purposes that are listed there, yes.
Do you have any other questions, Mr. Lindbergh?
Does that mean, is that what you were looking for?
That was what I was looking for. And if you're answering legal questions, something I've mentioned to Chuck was, when I did have the property surveyed, so I could, put up a fence and permit and make sure everything was there. Part of the alley is on my property.
I saw that.
So I did not necessarily want to change anything, but I also want to, what do I do to make it known that I'm not, giving that away? That's my property.
Well, I mean, you'd have to actively give it away. Because
Well, I mean,
access-
sometimes there's things where somebody uses a piece of property for so long, they.
Well, adverse possession, but that's not, nobody's gonna build a house on your alley.
Right.
And live there exclusively.
Right.
And be the only person there. That's what you're gonna say. So you have to be, yeah. Adverse possession, there's a lot of things you have to do it for 20 years, and it has to be exclusive, and you have to be outright with it. So they would have to really do something in the alley. Like, it's not done in the alley now, but people drive them down the alley, don't they? So it's not exclusive.
So did you sign in already?
No, but do I need to? I just had a question about it.
Eric, I mean, again, the commission thought when we were all talking that there were conversations between you and the residents that this was an agreement. So that's why we
No,
thought.
I'm agreeing in everything that was there.
Okay.
I just, all the paperwork I have, because like I told you, I got an email, and when we talked about it originally, we were gonna, to the appeals board, you have the appeals board. I told you when we all sat down, I just asked for some definitions. Very confusing. And, when you talk about the variance versus the, rezoning, I'm fine with the variance as long as it goes with the property. That was do I need a rezone? No, because if that goes with it, that's fine. I'm gonna do what I told the neighbor I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do actually more than you wrote in here.
That's awesome.
So, well, I want to try to make the place look nice. That's what I've been trying to do. I want to be part of the community, and I've served the community, and you can ask anybody that's been there. I've always taken care of people. And that's what I want to continue to do.
One thing, because I've seen the document you talk about, one thing I have a problem with, I don't know whether it's just me, is the operation of your business depends on the approval of your neighbor. Is that how I'm reading this?
If the cars are stored there a certain amount.
I don't think there's any place in the village of Cleves where one person has the right to tell a businessman how to do his business. And that's exactly what this document's saying.
I'm not sure it was just one person.
No, it's one person.
It was one person who was physically here or was there. But I don't believe she was the only person that had concerns.
My understanding, he has to get approval from that neighbor.
That was just negotiated in the.
What Eric has agreed to do, that if these cars that are operable and tagged and have, titles are stored there for greater than 90 days, he's to communicate that, okay?
But he has to give her approval.
All he does is have to say, look, I've got an issue with supply chain, and again, these complaints have to be valid, so again, if they come to us and say he's got them there for 6 years, I think that would be valid, because if they come there and say, this has been here for 5 months, he's got a valid reason, there's not gonna be any violation. That's not the point of this.
I understand the point.
Well, that's how,
But I also understand that what is being said. And I don't like the fact that one person can tell a businessman what he can do with the property. My biggest thing is, she's complaining about the cars that are on that lot, okay? Not being operational. Directly across the alleyway, and I know for a fact because it's my property, there was a car sitting on that lot that are not runnable, and had tags on it, sat there for 5 years and not one complaint. And then there's 3 cars on the other side of a property fence that she can see that I know has been there for God only knows how long, and no complaint. But now she has the ability to tell him how long he can have cars on the property.
I don't see who says that.
The neighbor the neighbor that's next to the property
On the other side.
on the other side?
This doesn't,
No, you gotta see what,
well, this is the one that I wrote that's gonna be passed by council, and it doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say that you gotta have a permit.
What Valdism doesn't affect the accountability under the law. Those cars are there and they're in violation, they can be cited as well.
Yeah, and there's exceptions in here for supply chain issues and other things, so.
And we're not on
And
this,
then due process obviously comes into play.
it's ordinance 9-2024 in your packet for new council members. And I've read through the contractual agreement that doesn't.
the whole crux of this was the fact that they don't want a boneyard to be there, or a junkyard.
well, I understand it.
And
But
that's
he's also stated numerous times that that's not what he does.
Well, that's not what the property is. Doesn't show evidence of that. He's got scrap parts all over the facility.
Okay, who's the
And
determiner?
he has had scrap parts on that piece of property.
Who's the determiner what's scrap property?
It'd be under
See, this is what we're getting.
It would be as defined by Ohio Basic Code or the Ohio Revised Code. It would be investigated by our zoning and code enforcement officer.
I know you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm trying to clean everything up. I've moved several vehicles, I'm moving several vehicles. Chuck was there when I was gonna load up the vehicle last night. I'm not there to upset the neighbors. And like I said in the discussion, when this originally happened, none of you were here. I couldn't ask no questions because there was nobody here. I just assumed because of driving around the 2-block area there, that, I'm moving stuff around, I'm parking stuff, I'm getting rid of stuff, that it wasn't that big a deal. The only complaint I had that I mentioned in one of the meetings was I felt a little harassed. Because there's so many other things there that affect it, but that's not part of the problem. We're discussing what the problem is. I'm trying to take care of the problem, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to have any problems, and if she would have came over and said something, I'd be like, all right, well, sorry, I'm trying to do this, and I would have done something about it, okay? Because you gotta be neighbors with everybody, and anybody that knows me, they know that that's one of my things. So I just.
Eric, just so you know, right after the last meeting, I went out, I took pictures of the entire area, sent it off to council. They're quite aware of the issue we're talking about. So it's not gonna be ignored. We still got issues though within our village, how we're going to enforce things and make sure it's right for everybody. We're not there yet. We're still not.
I know, and I've been patient.
I know you are.
Okay, so, with the variance, can it be yanked out from underneath him if, say, he takes a picture, or the neighbors take a picture every single day for 90 days to prove that this one car has been there for 91 days? Now, if it was zoned, that could not be yanked out from underneath him, is that my understanding?
The variance, okay, so the variance is being passed on a board, okay?
Okay.
And anytime that somebody would say that he's in violation of an ordinance, he's due process. So just because she takes a picture every single day and proves it's 91 days, it's the totality of circumstances. I mean, is it a junk car? Was he waiting on parts? Because it specifically says in there that exceptions can be made for supply chain issues, insurance issues, because sometimes they take forever to approve of a repair or they don't. So that's all in there. So it's not an easy situation for the neighbor just to make a complaint that it's gone.
Okay, but to the question, is a variance able to be yanked out from someone where zoning?
It's a
is not?
conditional variance. If he doesn't work with the conditions that council has given him to make everybody happy, then if that's proven and it's a chronic issue, then a variance can be removed.
But what about zoning? Whether he follows the 90-day or not?
Well, it depends on how much stuff of that violates zoning anyway. I mean, depending on and I haven't read the entire zoning code, but I know that, property or, junk property and things like that, I don't believe allowed on,
It's not,
yards and stuff, any of
it's not.
So that stuff still, I mean, it applies to the business anyway.
Okay, and the question comes about, because he works on these older cars, some people that are bringing him a car do bring him a spare car, a parts car. Are we not allowed, is he not
That's
allowed?
part of the business.
So that is going to be allowed, even though it's not tagged for like, because they're buying both cars, or they bought a car and they bought a parts car. It's saying it's not titled in that one person's name, it's titled in the person's name that he bought it
I mean, if that's what he can show that he's doing,
from. Okay,
and that's part of the business, he's taking stuff off this car, putting it on this car, and then he's gonna get rid of the seat,
okay.
and that goes along with.
All right, because I just know from the last, when we were addressing all this to come up with this, that was pretty much a no-go.
Well, usually, I mean, that car, if you're taking stuff off of there, it's gonna be inside while you're doing that anyway.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he can fit both cars inside the garage when he's taking a hood off to replace it, like say it's totaled in the front end. We have to take the hood off and the fenders off and stuff like that.
And if that's a fluid process, then, I mean, I don't see it as an issue. It's gonna have to be a violation of the condition, which means that a car's sitting there, it's not doing anything, he's not working on it. It doesn't run, it's not tagged, and it's unsightly,
Okay,
and it's leaking oil on the ground. I
okay,
mean, you gotta use common sense when you're enforcing the conditions of the document. I mean, you can only make them so tight, because
Okay.
if you make them too restrictive, then
that's what, I
You
mean,
go
that
nickel
was
and dime.
kind of discussed, and it seemed like where they were coming from, that was not gonna be able, and I wanna know before he signs this, that, okay, yes, if he's working on a car and has a parts car, they are for it, that a customer bought, I just wanna make sure that's allowed before he signs this documentation.
I'm not sure. I mean,
Eric doesn't sign anything.
Yeah.
You'll remember, we talked with the residents.
I understand that, and I'm a resident too,
Well.
and I wanna know that he's not getting into something that he's not gonna be able to come back from. And do you understand, like, he needs to do his business?
this is an ordinance, all right, that's agreed to ahead of time. If something is wrong with it, okay, I believe you still have the option to go to court. Am I wrong in that?
yeah, but right now, the property that he's getting the variance on, he's not allowed to do that stuff anyway, right?
But if it was zoned,
it's not.
It's not going to-
And
but if he went to court and got it done,
I don't
but
know.
with a lawsuit, I mean, are you
He
saying?
could try.
But because Hamilton County has it as,
It doesn't matter what happens.
so if he's going with Hamilton County
Hamilton
court
County,
though.
But
Hamilton
Hamilton
County
just-
is irrelevant.
Just like federal court, if federal court decides a case, somebody from Indiana sues somebody from Ohio, they have to use whatever state's law to decide the case, even though it's not. So it just because you go to Hamilton County courts doesn't mean you do with Hamilton County zoning, because Cleves is an incorporated area and has their own zone. So a court would have to use
But
Cleves
we don't
zoning.
have a court.
Well, you had a court here, it wouldn't decide that anyway.
Mayor's court would not
No,
decide.
it goes to common pleas. And that's the general division and the criminal felony division of Hamilton County courts. So this court here wouldn't have jurisdiction on that anyway.
Whether it was, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, whether it was zoned business or whether it's given a variance, the restrictions would be the such that
Okay, so are we gonna put it in here? I mean, cause it says no junked cars. Okay, what do you consider a junked car? Are we considering a parts car a junked car? I mean, because you're gonna have that in there.
we specifically talked about having cars that are parked there, that were customers' cars that were tagged, correct? Tagged?
Yes, but that's
Title?
what I'm talking about. I brought this up at the last meeting too. So it was discussed at the last meeting. I mean, there has to be a definition of, okay, if he has a parts car, is it going to be allowed there to use for a part for the one car that they're fixing? Not for
I think
multiple
our attorney
cars.
has already answered.
If the car's got
So
parts,
I go with whatever you say and not what Gary says. Is that my
You need to go with
understanding?
council.
you're saying that if a car is being used for parts, it's not junk.
Okay,
Junk is sitting in a junkyard.
okay, that's what I'm.
It's gonna be smashed. It's gonna be smashed and
Who's trying to get that approved, that it's not a junkyard, like, if he has, it's not gonna be tagged in that person's name, that's bringing you an extra car, because there's no reason to tag it.
And like I said, as long as it's reasonable for the process to occur if it's fluid.
Okay,
I mean, if it takes 2 years to take
so as long as
parts off
he
this
takes,
car and put them on another
as
car,
long as
it's
he
not
takes a
reasonable.
picture of this car and this car
I'm
together,
not saying
then
take a
there's-
picture of anything.
but I mean, I know how some people can be.
Yes, and that's for Cleves and zoning and to realize that's how people are being. I mean, and that's something you deal with, I mean, you do with law enforcement, you start to realize who's complaining constantly and who's not. And
Okay.
are we really dealing with a problem? But you gotta use common sense. And if he can prove this is exactly what I'm doing, then he's given due process to do that.
All right, I
And
just
that
wanna
can be
make sure
determined.
that there's not gonna be, okay, well,
Talked about, it had to be a valid complaint. That it just can't be someone that's arbitrary. You can sit there and laugh all you want, but if they want to sit there and complain 5 times a week because cars are parked there, it's not going to be taken seriously because we understand the nature of the business. But if he's going to store junk cars there for
but I
6
just
months to a
wanna- I
year,
just wanna
like
make
it's
sure
been.
because
I think there, Ohio Basic Code states that storage of junk vehicles, it outlines the definition of junk vehicles, so I can give you that code if you'd like to write it down. It's 97.06, but one of the, if you read section 2 here, one of the exceptions is unless the person having the right to possession of property can establish a motor vehicle as part of a bona fide commercial operation.
Okay,
So therefore it would not be
so
considered
we
a
have,
junk
we're
vehicle
going by that.
as long as he has proved that it's part of a commercial operation, which would be a parts car for
Okay.
our project. That's 97.06 of basic code.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that.
Anybody else want to talk with the public? Thank you very much. Hopefully, when we get into the, actual, discussion on the ordinance, this will shorten the process. So it's time for John to give us his maintenance report.
Over the past few weeks, with the dry weather, we've been able to do an extensive patching operation on Walmsley Avenue.
We put down approximately 12 tons of blacktop on Longleaf to patch up all the cracks and potholes and areas that the residents were concerned about, that were rattling out. Our next targeted area is gonna be the unimproved portion of east of Morgan Street. That will be east of Westgate, back where Dean Becker lived back there. So, as soon as we get a chance within the next week or two, we'll be blacktop on that.
John, would you describe for the council, I don't know that you have any pictures, but that house is up farthest up. You describe how bad of a condition that rain.
It's like a buggy road. It's old blacktop, that's been run on for probably 30, 40 years. It's out of, it doesn't meet current standards for a road. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if you call it an alley, but, it's just a one lane road back there, back to, just a few houses. And then there's one house way back and up on the top, that is just a gravel street, a gravel driveway that goes back there. So, it's unimproved. There's no curbs, no gutters. It's just blacktop that's in really bad shape.
Fire engines have to get up there and there is fire hydrants.
Yes, that's correct.
So it is an issue that, and just so the council, everybody knows that this resident is no complaint.
John, what does that mean? You're gonna be laying down entirely new
All we can do,
driveway?
all we can do is just patch the real bad areas, scrape off the high spots and then blacktop. But we can't overlay a whole street or anything like that. All we're doing is just, shoveling hot mix blacktop down and, putting down a adhesive layer and then put the blacktop down and then roll it. That's all we can do. We can't, overlay a whole street or anything with our operation.
I wasn't even sure to do that one. I said, what can you do with this? We came up with a solution to it. So,
Last couple of days, we hauled in, 11 loads of, baseball dirt, which is equal out to 56 tons of baseball dirt. We're spreading it on the fields. And then, as the field is, leveled out and graded, till the field up and get all the old dead grass out of it. And then, we'll take and, start, the process. We'll have, Dale come over and do, check the fields and make sure they drain well and drain to the sides. And then, we'll keep those fields in that condition as long as we can through the season. Last Thursday, Televac came into Cleves Sewers on, Porter Street from, Laird all the way down to Markland. That's just the first step. They noticed that the water wasn't draining out of the manholes and they kept on filling up and they couldn't figure out why. So we started looking around and we found a, outfall pipe that was, completely covered up with dirt. Couldn't even tell there was a pipe there. We dug it out today and now it will drain out all the water in that area. So that's where all the water drains into a, drainage ditch and then goes across 50 for the pipe. That's all I got.
could you explain to them that the initial cost was $5,200, but
Yes.
the final cost is?
The estimate was $5,200 and the actual invoice came in at $2,600.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions?
Great job. Thank you.
Hey,
Are
John,
you gonna-
you can go ahead and go home.
Well-
Go home.
Before you, I was gonna ask if you're gonna stick around for the discussion of the gazebo.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You'll stick around. I mean, you can just answer it now if you want to do that.
You wanna move it? and
Yeah.
handle it Now?
Yeah, just go ahead and deal with it now.
I think we talked about this more in parks than anyplace else, so I just wanted you to lay out exactly what we're gonna be moving to do here in the gazebo park. We need a term for this.
Waterworks Park. The gazebo.
I'm gonna stick with the waterworks quad. for now.
So it's what we, designed to do was to, take a 4-foot sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk. There is an asphalt sidewalk there now that's only, 3 feet wide. It's in disrepair. So we're gonna build a new sidewalk from Main Street all the way up to the gazebo. And then from College Street over on the parking lot where the, waterworks employees park on College Street, we will bring a handicap ramp from that area all the way across to the same sidewalk that goes up to the gazebo. And then around the, there will be a transition area there for the wheelchairs to turn and go on the gazebo. There has to be a ramp there because there'll be a drop off. So, or a railing, there'll be a railing there. There will not be any railing going up the sidewalk from Main Street. It's just a pedestrian sidewalk. It's not meant for handicap usage because of the grade that's going up the hill. So that's why we brought the handicap ramp off College Street because it's flat, more flat there. And then, we don't have to put, transition ramps or, landings to turn the ramp to get up. So it's kind of difficult to explain, but if you go up a steep hill, you can only go up so far, then you have to have a landing and to split that grade down and to make it less, so it's not too steep for a wheelchair to walk.
My question will be more basic. So are you talking about a ramp that will actually get somebody in a wheelchair into the gazebo platform?
That's correct, yes.
So are we eliminating the steps that are there and
Yes.
everybody's gonna walk up the ramp?
No, we're not using those steps in the back. We're using, it's a whole new ramp that will come off, at the, western edge of that parking lot, of the employee parking lot.
Are you gonna cut a new hole in the railings that we have in the gazebo?
Now,
Right now, it's
No.
it's a C shape and there's one entrance, correct?
we're still using the same entrance.
Okay.
It's coming off that front entrance. It's gonna come, you walked up the sidewalk from Main Street, it would come off on the left into that same, walkway.
I'm on College.
Yep.
I'm moving toward the town hall, which is moving west. Am I going up the ramp?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I just want to be, but so like, I think the ordinance or resolution, whatever it says, it includes putting earth underneath the gazebo again, that's to get it on solid ground.
Correct.
It's the sidewalk installation and removal of the old decaying one, right, and it's the installation of this ramp. You have a bid that covers all these at the price that's mentioned,
Yes.
so it's not ambiguous, like.
And
To answer your question, can we really get it done?
that also includes electric.
Yeah, that's what it is. And we discussed that at nauseam, it seems to be right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, are you ready?
No, I'm not. Did we have minutes produced from the last? Where are they, do you know?
Yep, got them. I get them for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't seen them. So at this point in time, Chuck, I'm not in a position to report. I mean, I've got the agenda.
Well, let's wait, go ahead and get it. Kevin, do you want to go on with parks and all or not?
So at Parks, we try to tackle 3 things. First, we wanted to make sure that we were ready for WCSA tournament. Seems like we're doing okay. I think the league wanted to put in some signs. I think that's really a problem. Staff is taking care of it. I talked with John to make sure that needs were met from the maintenance department for the activities of December 7th on the Christmas walk. I think we ran through most of the things from the parade. And, I don't know if we covered like porta potties yet, but John's confident that we have the staff for street closures and the procedures. And then thirdly, we talked about how I don't want to say dispense, but consume the remaining COVID money that needs to be spent by December 31st. So we went through, kind of a survey of, president's council members or stakeholders' opinions on how that should be done. I know Penny gave a copy of the spreadsheet that was directly generated after that. I did additional work on that, gave a copy to council. And there's also one visual floating around over there of additional research that I gathered today. But I think we need, because, okay, so number one, the $29,000 project for the gazebo is going to consume a good chunk of that. That leaves, I believe, 15,000. And we don't want to be in a situation where we're not spending it just because we don't feel like we have the authorization to spend it. So we wanted to either at least have a show of hands or pass approval or a resolution or a motion or something, to say how our staff should execute on distributing those funds for additional projects. And I will go down the list and tell you roughly what we were thinking. And if we have any final discussion on what's prudent and what's not, or what priorities we should set, I think we need to do that here. So it kind of extends beyond just a parks report. Where did it go? So the new one is double-sided, looks like, and it has a running balance that goes down. I put a priority on the bottom left, so that's not the one that any put in your packet. And so we all do a little math here. I have total costs off of some of these figures are off. So I have the sidewalk is taking John's total package that he just described. I have that described in 4 items: sidewalk, gazebo, gazebo, gazebo. That was broken out at some point. I must have perverted my spreadsheet at some point. But instead of that costing 36,500 as it is on the spreadsheet, that costs 29,000. That means that we have not 7,000 to spend, we have 15,000 to spend. The other suggestions, with some priority, were some trifling equipment costs for starting wiffle league in the spring. Those can be rather limited to just the actual sports equipment, backstops and targets. That can all be done for, in total, a few $100 if we spring for fencing. That can rise to, fencing is further down. Wiffle fencing and wells can spread to about $2,500. I don't know that we thought about it in those terms. Going down the priorities. What the heck happened to my titles here? I had one of Councilwoman Meister's top priorities was replacing the benches next to the baseball fields. Those can be done affordably. The lowest figure that comes out is 200. I've seen them higher, up to 500. But each of the 4 fields that don't have the dugouts, the ends are bent up. They are a laceration hazard. They can probably use either single center repair or replacement. So I agree with that priority. All these things were basically, everybody agreed that it wouldn't be a terrible waste of money on any of these things at this point, or that the value was there. The other major item, I'm sorry, I'm going to get to my spreadsheet here because I have no idea. It printed the top line of these things, and that's probably the least informative. It must have been a wrapping issue. Sorry.
Mr. Burns, while you're looking that up,
Yeah.
I have a question. So if we have $29,000 for the gazebo and there's 39 total. I thought 10,000. I thought 5,000 of that was earmarked for the camera.
Okay, I don't have that. I believe that's true. I don't think that The cameras for this building.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if that was agreed upon or not.
I think finance took
We
that up.
talked about it, so we're taking up finance.
So that's good to note. Cameras. No, I seriously have no idea what that thing is right now. Oh. Accessibility grant for this. I printed the wrong sheet. So number 8 should say new benches for baseball fields since the current ones are a foot off the ground and banged up. Number 9 should say golf cart one. The top lines we already covered. The major other item finally coming to us. I proposed the idea of getting a golf cart to be run by the park staff to increase the accessibility for park patrons, particularly on the days of sporting events. If you are a patron and you're watching your grandchild's game, or you're otherwise less mobile, it really is difficult to get from any of our parking spots to any of the fields. The closest you could walk is one full soccer field length to get to your destination. It's normally more like 4 or 5. So the idea would be to have our staff running a golf cart from different points around the park, running patrons back and forth. For that purpose, it would probably have to be a gas one, although some of the lithium battery ones might serve, don't know. I think in that meeting, we projected a number of $5,000. Subsequent research suggests it's probably 7 or 8. 8 is more typical. And that was the major other proposal. I guess the question to put before council is, do you want to shuffle any of these priorities? Do we object to any of these priorities? And can we do some quick math to say, depending on how the costs run, please execute on these ideas in this order?
I've got alarms going off like crazy about golf carts and transporting potentially handicapped people. And the person who's driving the golf cart, what kind of a liability is that for the village? Potentially, how much are we paying that person? And are we gonna man that golf cart every single game from Monday through Sunday? I've just got a lot of questions about the potential of the golf cart. Where's it gonna be stored? It's a floodplain over there. I've got some real concerns about a potential golf cart and the benefits that it might provide versus the risks that might also be entertained with that scenario. I don't know. I would have to give that more thought before I would move down that lane. Because then you've got labor costs to operate that, in addition to the costs of the park already. I just don't know. I have concerns.
Would that increase our insurance?
Those are good points. I can reach out to our rep and see if that increases, if that's something we need a rider on for a policy or for our general liability. Yeah, I'm sure there'd have to be regulations, the licensed driver, and we probably want people to sign a waiver. I understand the concerns. It's definitely worth looking into. I can reach out to the insurance company and see what their recommendations are. I mean, but to Mr. Burns' point, I do think that we would get a lot of usage out of it between the Christmas walk and other initiatives that we plan in the future. Yeah, we can bring the Easter Bunny back. You know, much like that. I think we could have usage for it. There is the need, but I also see the liabilities. So, give me no more guidance from me. I can look into them.
I have one. I think calling the Mason City Schools, they use volunteers for the tennis tournament. I used to drive for them. So they had people that would volunteer And they've been doing it for years, so they might be able to give you some idea as to the issues on liability and how to manage them.
And Milford Park also, I mean, they do a very similar thing. I don't know if that's maybe where you got the idea, but I go to Milford Park, their parks employees from multiple golf carts parking so far away, and they'll transport you. I can reach out to Mason and Milford to see how they've tackled it and reach back out to you guys before the next meeting. I can send it via email.
Well, so I'll say this, I take your concerns, Councilwoman. I do not take your knocks on its utility. I think it'll be absolutely fantastic addition because I've been there. So, it does have its pros. That's my only point. My only response. I think we can easily spend this money, this balance, without getting the golf cart. We can give that further deliberation. Like, you come to a point where say, hey, we want the $8,000 to $16,000 for that purpose. We think we can justify it. We can take that up again and bother that. So I forgot, I did also, we can also look to get bleachers into the park as well. Those are also more expensive than I had noted to the committee. I saw them at $1,000 to $2,000 for standard, three row seating. If we come to October and we're still talking about how to spend the money, I wonder if we're getting into the question of whether or not we can actually execute on it. Like, is it enough that we write the check, or we have to have it delivered?
I think one of the things too that you brought up, I like the idea to help parks out, for me too, is the zero turn.
Yeah, that's down at the bottom.
That's right.
So the last one we bought was $14,000. In our meeting, John said another zero turn would be perfectly useful. You know, we can get patrons right on that too.
Zero turn?
I'd like to be able to spend the money. That's why I asked kind of Kevin to kind of put us together a spreadsheet. You know, here's our balance, here's how we can spend this and get down to the zero bottom. We are at October, we've got November, December, we're probably limited to December with our meetings, et cetera. But I do think I think what you're saying is time is of the essence.
They have to be obligated by December 31st.
Okay.
So like in your minutes, it has to be obligated.
In our minutes.
Or it just has to be obligated. So I mean, to me, like in the minutes that you are using that money for something that you're going to spend in 25, that you have to, or PO.
That can be done in November or
December. So
Well, you have to encumber the fund. If you issue a PO and you don't spend it at the end of the year, you gotta encumber those funds to the next year.
yeah, obligated.
These funds don't go away come 2/25.
Yeah. As long
What
as
you
we
said,
obligated.
they're obligated.
So after you have your 29,000 for the gazebo, we're talking about $44,000, correct?
Yeah, we have 39.
Okay, so
30 what?
49,987.35.
I was like, I'm battling.
Sixth grade.
What's the 40,000? There you go.
given the precision given the accuracy that we have, given the significant digits, as the council said. So scratch that. We're starting with roughly 40,000. We spent 29 on the gazebo. That left 11 minus 5 for the security cameras. That leaves only 6,000 to spend. If we agree that the benches are a viable option, that can consume up to 2,000. Well, whatever rate. There's really only 8 that need to be replaced, so that's still probably at a minimum of $1,600. That leaves only 4,000. I don't think that leaves the golf cart. Other priorities on this list. Council in general, it's not privy to the parks discussion. I'd like to highlight for outdoor use and benefit of.
I would like to see the benches and stuff around the ball fields. If we're investing in this extra dirt and we're gonna do what we have to do to make those ball fields playable, I say get the nice benches in, get what we need for the kids that are playing on the ball field. Since we're already investing money in dirt and to upgrade those fields, let's make sure the benches are safe and that they're adequate. That's what I would like to see, but
For that matter, John threw out the idea of replacing the two badly rusted backstops. I don't know if we have the time for that, but we didn't give it a lot of consideration in committee. I think we didn't have the figures. We didn't think those would be forthcoming. But you have like a major focus on baseball, then that was also in the discussion.
I just think bringing the players' benches up to par and maybe putting some bleachers in. We are in a flood zone, so we have to consider that.
Yeah, part of the cost of bleachers is concrete pads and chains.
Yeah.
Yes. The last ones did wash away.
Does that mean anyway, with the events board that you had brought out?
Yeah, the additional signage or bulletin board, either around town or in the parks, was also considered. Again, we didn't have great numbers for that, so we didn't talk about it a lot. So
Pardon me.
I have a question.
I'm old.
We have cameras in the park. We have the other parks.
I think we're working up for that. I don't know that there are existing cameras. We want them there. They have to be solar powered like our dumpster guards. I don't know how expensive those were.
They're not real expensive. They're about $300 per. We watch everything on app. You can have it all installed on your own phones.
And then the other, North Bend has theirs and, Astor, but they don't have theirs closed off like we do. Like we can close our park off.
Well, we have persistent dumping issues, and general safety would probably be improved with the addition. Okay, so maybe we can wrap this discussion if we say what do we need to do procedurally to authorize, like, we have a general sense of how we want the money spent. And do we need a motion? Do we need a resolution to say, police administration, spend this money on outdoor stuff, security stuff, focusing on baseball benches, cameras? We're already, I presume we're gonna go ahead and approve the zero.
You can make a motion and make a decision on a topic by simple motion. I believe there is another one.
I will just say this, Kevin, John is very concerned that it's not authorized, it's not gonna be done. So, we had a discussion with me this week, I know you have two.
And that's why we have the ordinance in here tonight, so we can move forward with the team. Yes, we're at crunch time. It has to be approved and we're gonna get it done by Christmas law. For the other funds, would it be safe to say we have committee meetings coming up in November and we have $10,980 and left minus the $5, you have $6,000 out of committee meeting next time. You have a plan to spend the full $6,000 for council.
I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I'm not particularly interested in further deliberation when I think we have enough on the roster here that we can just say, please, in this order, dispense with the additional funds from the COVID fund until exhausted on security issues as approved by security committee and I believe finance. I'm perfectly happy to take the suggestion of cameras in the park. We did discuss that, just didn't get into it. That can be part of that package if you want. And we can rephrase this and be more certain about it if you want to vote for the motion. But the baseball benches and bleachers, that can be the end of the discussion. That's enough right there.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rob.
if you want to do that and lay it out, as long as we get the minutes and everything's in there, I can create the motion on paper that can be signed according to the vote.
We're not, any objection to that process? So let me take a few notes here to benefit Kenny. So I'll try to go in that order, right? So we're talking about the remaining well, first let's vote on John's thing, then I'll make a motion. I'll write that.
Vote on John's thing.
That's,
I think it is John's thing because he's gonna do so much of it.
Okay.
Because
The gazebo.
so you want to take the ordinance that's listed on the agenda.
That's ordinance 10.
10. So we're gonna move to agenda item 17.
Go ahead.
Ordinance number 10-2024, an ordinance to fund the installation of accessibility improvements at the Gazebo Community Center located at 92 Cleves Avenue for community events.
No, I don't think we'll read it. They've got it. The audience has it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
If it's an ordinance, do we have to suspend the rules versus a resolution? This was written up as an ordinance, that's why I'm asking.
Leave the cheat sheets in your domain.
Yeah, it is.
I leave it over
But
for you.
I know what what you have to do with an ordinance versus a resolution. Because there's no emergency wording on it at all.
Rob says you go down to where it says suspend the rules. I want the next motion to suspend the rules and you may type all.
Anybody like to make?
I'll second that motion.
Who made the first one?
I don't think
I thought Kevin.
I can't make a motion. I'm wondering, what's that in the process? I'll make the motion.
I think the motion for a second.
Somebody else out there.
I think the motion to dispense with the ORC.
I'll second that.
No, wait a minute.
I'm done with my coffee.
Obviously, just, sorry, I'm not.
Where are we? Somebody needs to make a motion to suspend the rules.
I make a motion.
He did.
Did you make a motion? I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right. The motion made by Mr. Babel and seconded by Mr. Walters. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, Penny, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Just to suspend the rule.
Yeah, I know. Now we're gonna have a motion to do the ordinance. Do we have a motion to,
Yep, so moved.
okay,
Second.
motion by Mr. Bolton and seconded by Mr. Walters, and this is for ordinance number 10-2024. Any further discussion? Call the roll, Penny.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Now, Kevin, are you, with your motion yet or not?
Gosh. Remind me, safety improvements, benches, bleachers, associated costs, quick creep and so forth. Does that cover our discussion? Okay. So I will move that we approve the administration's use of any remaining COVID funds after the gazebo improvements. That administration is able to make safety improvements to this administrative building at 112 South Lane, 101 South Lane,
101.
North Miami, darn it. Including cameras, installation, and related equipment. That they may also, at their discretion, install cameras into the ones guarding our dumpsters in the parks, where the need is identified. That they procure and install 8 benches for the use of baseball fields, ignoring the current baseball field that has, I don't think we need this detail, but ignoring one that has dugouts. And finally, bleachers to go with said baseball fields and anything required to secure.
You got that, Rob? So you made the motion. Second by Mr. Rabel. Any further discussion? Any call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Motion passes 4-0.
Also come to the Christian Walk.
Are you gonna?
It's the end of the parks report. I was asked.
As a point of order, I don't know how everybody else feels. I really would love to address these resolutions and ordinances, which is the business at hand, earlier in the meeting. Is there a particular reason why we're saving these things for the end of the meeting? Because they're all listed on the agenda at the end of the meeting.
Justin, you want to comment that? You created the agenda, so.
I was just following the past template that I was provided, so I just followed the template I had to have all department reports go first and have public comments go first. If you'd like them moved up.
Well, I think these are pretty important issues. We're 2 hours into the meeting and we did adopt this one finally, but we've got others. Let's just think about that as a point of order for future meetings.
I would be open to any suggestions on moving it around.
Yeah, it was just,
Consolidate.
maybe this is how we've always done it, but to me, I think the active council, the ordinances and resolutions in order of business should be done earlier in the meeting, personally. So I'm open to have you look into that.
You want to go ahead and deal with all these now, Linda?
I personally think it's a good idea.
Okay. Then let's move on to.
No, not really. Well, there's minutes, but I haven't had a really good chance to look at them. To highlight, I don't want to read 3 pages of minutes. And I haven't had a chance to really hone in on the stuff that would be important to report. Have these minutes been distributed to anybody else except me? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would defer at this time. It's 3 pages a minute. We did discuss, I'll discuss what we discussed. The potential of starting a street committee in the very near future, which Shayla was a part of. So we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board on that. But that committee would zone in on just street issues. And it's kind of a result of not needing all 3 of us on the planning and zoning, now that you've got the commission and everything together. So that's still a list. I don't know if Ted has any interest in that or not, to replace Shayla. And then we talked about potentially a resident sitting in as a part of that committee as well. Basically looking at the priority of street projects and what we feel we can afford to do next and whatever. It wouldn't require a whole lot of work at this point because, you know, we do have I was provided with a list of the streets and the ratings of those streets. I'm not prepared at this time to go over that, but I did request that and I did receive that. So that's good to have that so that we know what the streets are rated. The JMA update, we're not going to do that. Apparently it's going to hold off for the next meeting.
Gonna have to.
But we did talk about JMA in committee. We also talked about the potential of a, cost of living increase for employees, pending a more thorough outline of how we're gonna handle, performance reviews and the like. And it was,
There is a ordinance on.
right, and it was decided by the committee that we would potentially give a 3% increase across the board to most employees, with the exception of a few. Because the last salary increase was given 2 years ago, I believe. So this 3% at this time is just a cost of living across the board increase to all employees with the exception of Mr. Habig.
Thank you.
Council people don't get it either.
Yeah, I put that in there.
Yeah. Yes, so we did talk about that. We will be looking at that ordinance right here. And then there's gonna be further work in the next 6 months on, actually scales for each position, pay scales that a person could fall in under depending on their years of service and their performance reviews. We did talk about, potential fire levy. That's in discussion right now. Currently, it was just a discussion. No business was made. They talked about a possible committee being formed, to deal with the various levies. Finalizing the gazebo, discussion was talked about in the meeting, potentially $27,000 final cost. I don't know if that's changed.
29 apparently.
29, okay. The COVID fund balance, which we just discussed. Municipal building maintenance, there's some issue up on the roof. I know that was going to be looked into to see what, if anything, needs to be done. Flat roof, and apparently there's a leak that goes down to the basement, correct? Or the back room?
The back room. And I have spoke to Sergeant Collins to get in tomorrow or Friday.
Take a look at the extent of that. It is a flat roof. I don't know what's all involved, but it is a flat roof. And we did have, that roof service when I was the clerk. So I know it's been over 10 years, but we did have work done on that when I was the clerk. So I remember that. And then there was a park update, which I think Kevin covered a lot of that right now. We do have to, reappropriate some money for the park. Their revenue has exceeded the original appropriation. So we will appropriate additional money. I guess, is there an ordinance about that in here? And the committee, finance committee approved, the salary increase, the 3% across the board. And I think we approved everything, really. The park. And I apologize, I didn't get a look at this until today, so I wasn't 100% prepared. I would like to suggest in the future that this can be sent to me as soon as it's done, so I can kind of come prepared next time.
We'll take care of that best we can. I think 3 committee meetings and her having less than a week, that's
Yeah,
cumbersome.
I understand.
We'll do the best we can to get
I
it to
just-
you.
Yeah, that's fine, I just didn't have a whole lot to,
I understand.
absorb 3 pages of these.
Absolutely.
So I guess that covers it. I feel was organized and I apologize for that.
Well, since this came right out of here, I'm gonna make a suggestion to expedite this tab, because you've got, just mentioned the Parks Fund. You also mentioned 3%. Maybe we can move on those things. Because to me, since it's a recommendation coming from committee, that's where these things should come from anyhow. It's from the committees themselves. So we have ordinance, number 11, 2024, and that is the 3%. And, so I'm asking whether or not, you guys are ready to take that up at this point. Are you guys okay with moving along?
What is the number on that?
This is actually ordinance, number 19, motion to approve ordinance number 11, 2024, increasing the salaries of all village employees, including council members and the village administrator by 3% of their current pay. And I believe that included, I think that included the water department also, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, I didn't get.
There you go.
It's been several years since our employees have received an increase, so we felt that it was important that they receive something while we get our act together in terms of providing good job descriptions, good scale of potential increases, in some cases, job titles. And didn't seem fair to make all employees wait for that process to be completed in the proper manner. So it was suggested that we consider a 3% salary increase for all village employees effective at the beginning of the next pay period. With, I think there were a couple exceptions, right?
Justin was the exception. I think there may have been one involving the part-time help, but I don't remember if that was it or not.
What about our fiscal officer and our clerk?
It addresses all employees, as you said, the council, myself, and other contracted employees.
Okay,
I'll just lay some discuss, I mean, I'm ready to vote yes, because I already did so, but to lay some detail on it, I know Linda has mentioned that there's a bigger process here. It seems to be very well considered by our new administrator. You said the word pay scales already, but to where the major corrections need to happen, or where they need to happen a little bit less, would be handled by kind of formalizing job descriptions and the pay scales that go with them, making sure people are in the proper job description, making sure that there's a chance for promotion upon performance and so forth. So some of our more longer standing issues about getting the right pay, or at least the right pay, will be addressed in the longer process. But as for this, it is a stopgap measure. It's probably still inadequate, but if we want it as a sign of good faith with our employees who are fantastic to us, because it's covering 2 years where inflation has probably exceeded 3% in probably each of those years. So it's my hope that was attractive to council. And I just wanted to try to instill a little bit more confidence in the longer process, probably for the benefit of our employees that we're working on it. We want to get it right.
Any other comments from council? If we're going to act on this, then we're going to have to, once again, suspend the rules. We have a motion to suspend the rules for read by title only, ordinance number 11-2024.
can I ask a question real quick
Yeah, go ahead.
of our solicitor? There is no emergency wording on this ordinance. Does that matter?
No, if it's suspended the rule to vote on it and make it go into effect, if suspend the rule for it, then.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry.
So do I have a motion to suspend the rules of ordinance number 11-2024?
I'll make the motion.
A second.
I have to wait a second. We have a
I would also like us to propose potentially having a 5-minute break after 2 hours.
Yes.
And then coming back to order.
Yeah,
You mean tonight or in general?
And in general, any meeting that we have, 2 hours, a 5-minute break, and then continue. We have one meeting a month, so these meetings are going to be more. in 2 hours.
I will also schedule an intermission.
Yeah, will you do that? Thank you, I appreciate it.
I think that's a great idea.
As I pranced to the restroom before, you know, on TV.
So we have a motion, I lost track here. Motion was still by, who made the first motion? Kevin, and you seconded, one seconded. And then,
One flush is yay, 2 flushes nay.
we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion about suspending the rules? No further discussion. Go ahead and call the roll, Kevin, please.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
One flush.
Ms. Bolton,
So we have,
That's a yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
and Mr. Babel.
Yes.
motion passes 4-0. Now we need a motion to, vote on ordinance number 11-2024.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bolton. Do I have a second?
Second.
I would clarify that the motion is to approve the ordinance, not to vote on
Second. Second by Mr. Walters. I've lost track. Any further discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
it. Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
All right, so it passes 4-0, ordinance number 11-2024. And Mr. Burkle has suggested, since we spent a long time discussing the zoning commission, that we go on to address the voting ordinance on it. Is there any objection to that from council?
Point of order. No.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh. Yes, go ahead and read it.
Ordinance 9/2024, ordinance to establish a conditional zoning variance for the property located at 108, 110 Countyville.
So everybody has a copy of that out in the audience, and they have a copy here at council. We would need a motion to suspend the rules again on ordinance number
Ordinance 9/2024.
9-2024.
Take a motion. But before you do that, one question on the text. And I do apologize to everyone. One of the clauses says that it has to be for the stated trade. I need to find it exactly. We never state what it is, just that it's currently auto body.
That's the stated trade, is Cleves Auto Body.
Does it need to be any clearer what a trade is versus what the name of the business is? Or like, does the fact that it's Cleves Auto Body establish what's going on?
What is the business organized as if you're a corporation?
I would have to look at it, it's body shop.
Collision restoration repair.
I mean, you could look there, the name of it, obviously, I mean, it's not a bakery. I mean, but you want that word in there. So the negotiations and the car storage and the fact that you're waiting on parts to fix cars. But if we want to stay it, we can.
Is it worth just inserting for a commercial purpose associated with the current trade of auto repair? So I would make that 3-word amendment in number 3 in your contractual agreement. Okay. I don't know if I contributed here. Thank you for hearing.
I don't know.
You can have my copy back if you need another copy.
I'll write it there and I'll do it.
As I said, I can get out there.
I'll make a motion with suspend rules.
Motion made by Mr. Walters to suspend the rules for ordinance 9-2024. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Bolton. Any further discussion? No discussion, would you call the roll?
Mr. Burns, Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yes,
Vote passes 3-0. Now we need to go with a motion to approve it.
Gonna make a motion to approve ordinance number 9/2024 as amended and agreed upon by council with those additions to line number 3. Current trade.
And did you get that down in the minutes?
Yes.
And Rob, you'll make the changes. Sure. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Walters. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Bolton. Any further discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Walters, you want to do your zoning?
I want to be real brief here, essence of time if I can be, but I want to take a couple minutes. We did have our first meeting with Illinois County Planning and Zoning. Chris Schneider, I think was available. Mayor was available, myself. We talked about the review of our current ordinances. We have our October meeting, which is yet to be scheduled, but will be scheduled by Illinois County and their assistance. So that is in the process of being already started. Any questions with respect to that? As you all know, we've finished up our final 3 public hearings and included the Cleves Auto Body on that. I want to thank everybody, in particular Cleves Auto Body, as well as the residents, because it is a win-win situation, in my humble opinion. It works for you, sat with us and agreed with the residents, irrespective if it was 1 person or 10 people. She represented whomever. And I want to be very clear that complaints need to be valid. I'm not taking willy-nilly complaints of somebody looking over the fence and saying, I don't like this. If it doesn't, if it's in violation of the ordinance, it'll be looked at. If it's not, it won't be addressed. And I do believe that this is in the best interest of Cleves and the residents. So, as long as you're happy with that, I hope you got if you have any questions, let me know. Okay. I had made mention too in an email, everybody got pretty passionate. I drove down Scott Street, or not Scott, I guess it's Scott Street, I guess, and there was a back alley there with some dumping and so forth. I don't know if anybody in Cleves here on council has had an opportunity to drive any of the streets around Mount Nebo or any of that area, but we've got a lot of work to do. And to address some of your concerns as far as other cars being parked there, we did talk about that we're in the process of handling that. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that notices have to be given, obviously, and that you're not aware of. So I am aware that notices have gone out about some parked cars back there and so forth, and we'll address those. Where they stand, I'm not sure. I don't know if you have an update from our zoning enforcement, where any of those letters might stand, but irrespective of that, I think it needs, I think, and I invite council to drive some of these streets around Lower River Road, Mount Nebo, Scott Street, off of the alleyways, and see the dumping of just residents. I don't understand how you can live in a community and have that kind of stuff on your property. I don't know if there's a way that we can get it out to the residents that this is not going to be tolerated. I'd like to see some signs that say no dumping. I'd like to see fines enforced. This is your community. It's not a dumping ground. People live here. Whether you live up in Coleman Woods, Aston View, Westgate, wherever, you've got a right to have your community clean, standard of living, and these ordinances are designed to enforce that. And I'm pretty passionate about it. I gotta live here. So I think it behooves us, and I invite council as well as you, our administrator, to kind of run some of these streets and take a look at them. Would you want to live next to this? I got news for you. I know in Aston View, I don't live anything next to that. If it did, we would address it. But just because it exists other places doesn't mean it's out of sight or out of mind, and I don't think that that's something that we can tolerate.
Village is 100% zoned, but I don't know how much attention has been paid to certain areas, and I think we need to start paying attention. You know, let's be real. COVID did affect things. It affected how much attention was being paid to certain things, and we've got to get back on the stick here. We are completely zoned village. There's no area in the village that is unzoned. So we do need to look at this kind of stuff. I agree.
So I know that we are establishing our mayor's court. Can I get an update real quick as to when we believe that might be incorporated?
Go ahead, Justin. I wish we had better news.
Do you want me to speak on that under safety committee report, or do you want to talk about it now in the zoning committee?
Well, I think they're together for a couple reasons. And, Jerry wanted some very specific things discussed on council, but she's not here tonight. Justin and I talked about that earlier today, and I felt she really needs to be part of that, since she is the chair of that committee. But in that meeting, Ted, you were there. The other lists on here, I was there, Justin was there. Ted, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you thought. I mean, you've got the minutes here. Maybe it would be best for you to address some of the things, and they do directly impact our nation.
I haven't had a chance to review them yet, but, Sergeant Carney talked about a lot of different things and be involved, and basically they were saying a lot of the discussion was about guns being shot in the village police, and they basically stated that we can't enforce our ordinances, but they will investigate anything that's reported. They gave an example of one individual firing off a weapon, but he was under stress or under the influence, so they were able to take legal action against him. But there's been other cases where people were just out target shooting and they couldn't do anything about it. So we're not going to get any help from the county on this issue. Basically, it's going to be up to us to enforce our ordinances, and the only way we can do that is by having our mayor's.
Well, I think you gotta have more than just the mayor's court.
We're going to have an enforcement officer, whether we have a constable or whether we have the zoning officer, and do it, cite people. That's a whole new can of worms, whether we're going to have whether Ed's willing to do that or not. There's a whole bunch of paperwork, red tape we got to go through to get this to work out.
Well, originally, we were gonna use the magistrate of Addison, along with some of the stuff that they already have in place. That's not gonna happen.
So that can't really happen. One, there's only one user. Their user license for their contract on with Baldwin does not allow us to use it. First. Second off, if we were to, it was a good idea, and then when you try to put it, the plan in practice, we realized that our mayor's court would be starting around 9:30 at night. So I signed a contract with Baldwin, and I was working with their legal department. I've been working hand in hand with Mr. Merkel and the mayor. Really, these answers are always part of a larger question, right? Mayor's court limitations. Mayor's court's not intended for civil citation. Historically, when Cleves had similar cases and we handled them in the past, they're technically separate from mayor's court. So we would run them right after marriage court. We would run our marriage court docket. Right after that, we would run zoning and zoning court, for lack of a better term. It's an administrative board. I think we still have that ability. Rob and I are exploring how we make that work. It may not be called mayor's court or be a court of record, but I do think that setting up, having a neutral hear these cases to determine liability if they're cited is a possibility for zoning only, for our civil citations. To move down to your issues, enforcement challenges. We have recurrent issues with our local ordinance enforcement, quality of life concerns. Like Mr. Babel said, whether it's discharging a firearm in village limits, or it's overtime parking, or junk vehicle, or parking an RV on the roadway, or a semi, and I could go on and on. It's directly tied to our inability to organically enforce our local laws.
So do I hear you understand, if I understand, we can't incorporate a mayor's court whatsoever? The bottom line, yes or no?
At this point, no, we don't have
So-
organic law enforcement authority. Our contracted service will not enforce our.
Our contracted services will not enforce a civil ordinance. They won't enforce a civil ordinance in Hamilton County.
They won't enforce a civil or a criminal ordinance that this
They
council.
you cannot tell me Hamilton County Sheriff will not enforce a criminal violation in the village of Cleves.
Criminal, yes, they stated, but
But
not.
they won't do a civil.
When you're talking, an ordinance is separate from the Ohio Revised Code, so it's.
They actually stated that that's anywhere in the state of Ohio.
That's correct. They won't even do it for Hamilton County. I get that. But how does Hamilton County then, or any place, then enforce their zoning ordinances? If there's not a mechanism there to hear that. Now, we explored whether we were gonna have a mayor's court, or whatever you wanna call it, or we were gonna looking at Addison. Why are we not using, why can't, what is preventing us from using Addison?
That doesn't. I mean, could Addison's magistrate come here and serve as our neutral? They
I know
sure.
we had talked about using Addison physicality, their facilities, neutral, and it would be not here in Cleves, but using their magistrate, their software, we're paying for them or whatever, was talked about.
It's a licensing.
It's a licensing issue with Baldwin. With related to software, it's two-pronged answer. First, the licensing issue with Baldwin. We can't do that. Second, and I'll defer to the solicitor on this, but I don't know that Addison's marriage program venue over our local ordinances.
Rather than they need to have venue powers in the sense that you're getting into areas that I can't answer. But, you know, let me leave you going on here. I think I had said I heard gunshots too. Sent you that. Well, and again, I didn't know if it came from North Bend or for that fact, Cleves. But you cannot tell me that if you don't call 911 and say, I've heard gunshots, and you're gonna say, well, that's a civil matter. I'm not gonna go investigate it. God forbid there be somebody dead on the property. I can't see Hamilton County not going to. They're gonna go investigate it.
They will.
And if they find out it's a gentleman, whomever has discharged a weapon, intoxicated, or under the Disabilities Act, that he can't have a weapon, or they or whomever can't have it, they're gonna arrest him. But if you're just gonna fire it off, I don't see how that's not against the law, because I think it's a safety issue. What if I fire my gun up in the air and it lands and finds up killing somebody?
So
That's a civil matter.
Yeah, that's criminal.
If you just told me it was civil,
No,
if I fire,
if you resolve a fire and it kills somebody, then it becomes.
I understand that, but my point being is, I have no idea if I shot my gun up there, somebody could die. My intent wasn't to kill somebody, I'm out there having fun, popping these up. How can we criminalize it?
It is criminalized under our Ohio Basic Code. So when you look at criminal laws, you have two prongs. You have the Ohio Revised Code, which is enforceable by state laws. Locally in Cleves, Ohio, we have the ability to adopt more stringent laws, which is where we have Ohio Basic Code, where we've adopted overtime parking. To your point about gunshots, sure, if you're under disability, meaning if you're a felon, under certain convictions, or if you're drug dependent, alcohol dependent, you're under disability, yes. So you shoot your gun, they determine you're under disability. You would ultimately, you could be arrested for possessing weapons under disability. If you're reckless in that regard, you're trying to assault somebody or commit another crime with a firearm, sure, those are applicable under the Ohio Revised Code. But if you go outside with no criminal intent, then you just discharge your firearm. A nuisance, right? Nobody was put at risk. It's just a nuisance. I call that a quality of life issue. Residents in Cleves seem to predominantly not want to have their neighbors shooting guns, whether it's unsafe or not, because of a nuisance. Ohio Basic Code says in the village of Cleves, you cannot discharge a firearm. Period. End of story. We used to be able to enforce that when we had organic law enforcement authority. We don't have that anymore. And I believe you were at the meeting with the sheriff's office and others were where this directives come directly from their legal department that they will not enforce any municipalities' local ordinances. And so therein lies the rub with our problem.
So
Why is it,
essentially,
sorry, what's the difference between the basic code and revised code to the sheriff's department? Are they refused the basic code?
Yes, a basic code is an ordinance. So if this council, when you were on council in 27, we adopted overtime parking, right? Overtime parking is not addressed in the Ohio Revised Code, right? But the village of Cleves, because of our parking issues, we adopted an ordinance. We codified it and we gave it a criminal penalty section saying you can't park a vehicle on the roadway for over 72 hours, right? If somebody that's still an ordinance on our books, it's a valid law. If somebody decides to park a vehicle today and keep valid tags on it forever, they're breaking our law, but we have no law enforcement arm to enforce it. Now, rinse and repeat that with many ordinances that we have that don't apply under.
He's talking about a crime.
Well, it's an unclassified misdemeanor, traffic and criminal kind of run hand in hand.
Well, we have another agent who can issue citations for civil matters.
It's not a civil matter, it's codified as a criminal or traffic matter. And you can get into, and I believe you're talking about Ed Lindenschmidt. So if we had a law enforcement arm organically, we could then extend his authority to be a parking enforcement officer. So yes, then he could enforce parking related issues and parking citations like other cities, meter maids, for example. At this point, we don't have, it kind of all goes back to the root that we don't have organic law enforcement authority here in Cleves, and our contracted service has said that they will not enforce our local ordinances. And that was my next point on here is decision point. In my opinion, and I think my communication with Robbie feels the same, the council has to determine their path forward. Is that we're going to refrain from enforcing these local ordinances, or are we going to establish some sort of hybrid solution? I don't know what a hybrid solution looks like. There have to be discussion on it, but at this point, our employees are in a lose-lose situation where, yes, they can go to Lower River Road or they can go to Markland or anywhere where there's an issue. We can receive the complaint from our citizens. We can go out, we can address it, document it, write a report, send them a notice. But it's like we're a dog without teeth, bark no bite. We can't cite them. Ultimately, we can't do anything with our ordinances.
so with our ordinances come a penalty for a fine. True?
Correct, yes. Well, not necessarily. When we adopt them, no, but then they go, at this point, they go to M legal where they're codified and
So
they
once
receive-
our ordinances become codified and someone says, you know, I'm storing whatever, and you come find me, $10 a day, whatever, and I refuse to pay it. Do we not have a mechanism to put them under property taxes? We looked at that, we talked about that.
If it falls under zoning, then yes, we could.
Then why aren't we doing that? There's a mechanism to enforce it.
It happens at the end of the what's gonna happen is you can issue the fine, but we gotta send it on to the auditor. Do that. We can do with it now if we wanted to.
What,
For zoning issues, but not for criminal issues.
Yeah,
and our ordinances are civil.
No, not all of them.
I'm only talking about our civil ones. Which ones are criminal?
We'd have to look in basic code.
Well, like cutting your grass, not cutting your grass is
That's
not.
zoning.
Okay, so let's set aside, for the sake of argument, I'm not talking about our criminal ordinance. I'm talking about our zoning, one that prevents tires being stored, or cars being stored, or junk, or whatever be that as it may. Let's talk civil. Now, I know we've cut grass, say we, maintenance has cut grass. How are we recouping those costs?
we are going to have to put it on the taxes, and there's a process that do that, which I spelled out long ago. And it happens when this council sends it down. Now, Ed has been instructed to give fines. But you don't collect it immediately, it's done over taxes.
I'm okay with not collecting it. I'm okay with it building up because whomever's gonna get some kind of lien on there. And if they can't sell their property, they're saying, well, I like property taxes and I got all these A, B, and C liens on there. I gotta do something about it. And they're gonna collect it. And it's gonna be collected through Hamlin County, true statement?
Correct.
So that in itself is kind of a motivator to kind of enforce it. I don't need an arm of the law going out there and saying that, again, I think we talked about Justin being that man, or not the magistrate, marshal, possibly, or having a marshal. So my point being is, why can't we do it civilly and start to issue these fines, irrespective of how we collect them? If they add up to $1,000, that's
I
not
know,
the
I'm not disagreeing with.
Well, then what's
You wanna
stopping
comment
us?
to that, Ron? Because I had that discussion with you early on. We had that discussion after the discussion I had with the mayor over in North Bend, and I went ahead and contacted the Hamilton County auditor, and they gave us the process that we have to do. And I don't see any reason, with one exception, in our property maintenance. Okay, we have fines for certain things. We don't have fines for other things that we could have and should have.
Then you need fee schedule and
Which is
the
what I-
ordinance needs to be codified.
Which I said we needed to get done.
Correct. And, Scott Solomon, is doing it over North Bend and.
Well,
we spoke to the county.
Yes, but we need to get this fee schedule put onto the property maintenance that deals with cars and things like that. And that's what's gotta happen if we're going to put fines. You can't issue the fine if we haven't adopted what that fee schedule is gonna be. And that is something that's gonna have to be done.
Yeah, and it's gonna be, voted on by him.
Exactly.
That would have to go through zoning though, wouldn't it?
I think if it's got to go through, I think if the fine schedule has to be developed, it probably has to go to council and adopt by commission. Or irrespective, I don't
Or developed by, what I'm saying is developed by zoning, because it was fallen under zoning, then approved by zoning and brought to council.
I would agree with that.
I really, that's fine by me. We need to go look somewhere, we can talk about it, with Hamlin County, see if they can help us with the fines.
All of the issues involving fines for the weeds, and the grass, I think Ed either has been or should have been, because I instructed him a long time ago to do that. Yeah, but you can't do it on the cars, and I don't know, Rob, you wanna address the issue though, about the cars that could have been dealt with under the Ohio Revised Code, but we're not, okay.
Again,
Table this.
in a second. No, because, no, I really won't, because I'm gonna tell you why. I've been on council since February, true statement. Here we are in November, and we're no further along than where I've asked us to be. And I know a lot of things that have been in the process. So if I'm gonna sit here and tell people that we're gonna enforce them, and we have no mechanism, but we can do certain other things, I would rather us be doing some certain other things to do this.
I don't disagree with you.
And again, I told you I'm pretty damn passionate about it. And to sit here and make excuses why we can't do it, I want to find reasons why we can't do it. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I've talked with Hamilton County Sheriff, they're not gonna enforce our civil ordinances. They're not gonna go out there and say, hey, you didn't cut your grass, we're not gonna mark your tires. I get that. I don't ask them to, because they don't do it in Hamilton County, they don't do it anywhere else. But if, again, we've got people that have got grass growing, weeds growing, or junk, whatever. And if we can enforce them and levy fines and collect them and go through their property taxes, I asked for that back when.
Well done.
So where are we with it? I'm not, it's a rhetorical question. And it's not meant to finger point. I'm just saying either we get off our butts and do it instead of talking about it. What needs to be done? So I'm gonna challenge whomever, that by the November council meeting, I want some answers. Is that a fair?
What you want is you want to have a fee schedule developed, which is what I talked to you about, Justin, and I talked to you about it, Ron.
Well,
We need
again,
a fee, because you're not gonna get it.
I know we're all busy. I get that. So again, I apologize. I'm not pointing fingers. I know we've had issues and priorities set. But I think right now, the tire is going to meet the road. And so I'm asking for some kind of reasonable execution of being able to make these enforcements. Whether we find property, residents, put it on there, and recoup maintenance costs. If we're gonna have people go out there, and our maintenance, go out and cut people's grass, I think there ought to be something that we recoup their costs. So, please. I'm done with my report and my request.
Well, I think this is, I don't disagree with anything you just said. So Justin, as the administrator, we need to have a fee schedule in place by the November meeting.
Do something that we can take a look at.
Sure. I'll work with our law director to come up with a legal fee schedule. What is the scope of this? That, like, what you guys just said is, all right, you're gonna legislate everything we don't like anymore. Like, what are we talking about here? It's nuisance streets?
Well, go up to Conscious Avenue, and take a look at the first house on the left, or ask John, not John, but ask Ed to show you what's behind that house and what they've had to deal with the burning of wire and everything.
I'm just asking you to be, so the reason I wanted to table this discussion is because it's unfocused. So we clearly have a number of problems to address. I think I don't have any particular objection to anything proposed here. It sounds like you have a process, which is a reason to move it to another committee to do the legislating and come up with a suggestion, then come back and see if they're worthy. It doesn't need all of our times, and I'm going to remain ignorant of all the 100 different types of issues. But I would recommend to you that you pick off, okay, we're going to take care of burning nuisances, or parking nuisances, or grass cutting nuisances. Because if you think you're covering it all in one fell swoop by November, it's going to be.
I think everything is outlined in the property maintenance code that are the main issues we have. I think all
That
you
sounds
guys
like a
do,
fine scope to restrict yourself.
yeah, I think that is what has to happen. We'll have to take that, take a look, we've already passed it, it's been on the books since 2010. All you gotta do is go in there and take a look at cars, junk, it's all in there. It's a matter of putting a fee schedule together.
That's good. And to me, it sounds like what are enforcement issues, and I don't think we've properly represented the discussions with HCSO here yet. But because there was a statement that Ed can write the ticket, and they'll be willing to serve it, but they'll get the authority out there, but they're not gonna be the one writing the ticket. So
They would, if Ed wrote up the violation, they would deliver it.
on our civil matters to our mayor. So
That-
We don't
I
have
say
a mayor's
it's cited
court
in
right
there.
now.
to our hypothetical, I asked the question. and not all of us have the privilege of being present at this meeting, but I asked the question, we had a mayor's report tomorrow, could we write a ticket to it, you would deliver it? The answer was yes.
Yeah, that he did say.
So we're not at a perfect understanding of the facts here. I don't even know if that's relevant to our proposed solutions. But it sounds like there's a stepwise process that we need here. Changing the ordinance to include your schedule sounds like a fine step. That may be inadequate, so if we can identify what other steps, I would appreciate that. But I think we gotta pick them off piece by piece. So use your enthusiasm for the process, to move the process forward, is what I would say.
Well, I'm gonna take objection to the fact that it's unorganized. To the mayor's point, we do have the International Property Maintenance Code. And that's what we're trying to address. And the reason why I'm talking about this is, again, I went down one of the streets, couldn't get down the alley because people were dumping things. Now, you can't, if you knew the person that was doing it, find them. Help me understand what the mayor's court would do. Decided in the mayor's court, they would come here and they'd say you're guilty or whatever. I don't know. But I guess if they wanted to refute the fine, said, well, I have no place to put it, so I just dumped it in the road because that's what I want to do. You may not have the luxury of, you have the luxury that maybe your neighbors don't do that, but other residents don't, and they just dump their stuff. We just talked about it in parks. They found the sofa was on the alley, and they found the Chase Lounge in the parks. So, how do you enforce the ordinance? I just okay, we're just gonna let it happen. That's why I'm saying we had a mechanism to try to get the mayor's court in place. If that's not going to be, what is the mechanism? Why have the ordinance? And why did we just spend how much money on AM legal to get it codified if you can't enforce it?
But it sounds like we've identified the missing piece for the enforcement, which is the schedule.
If that's the missing piece, then I'd like someone to address that.
Yeah, that's not the whole missing piece, it's a chunk.
Then we'll table that part for November, whatever missing parts are.
Ted, you want to talk about anything else on safety or not?
No, I'm good.
I'm gonna move on to my mayor's report now, be as brief as I can, then we're gonna get into Cindy on here. In your packet tonight, I had Cindy once again go ahead and take a look at our balances 2023 to 2024. And if you take a look at the front page, you're gonna see things in there that deal with minus 400,000 in that very first thing. I did that specifically because the fact that Jerry asked over 2 years ago that we put that 400,000 away. I think Kevin, you were in support of that, if I remember correctly, and I'm fully in support of that. That money, we wanted it to generate money. And so Cindy, the dollar amounts you see there are the like 1,334,422, and she took 400,000 off. So in reality, it was 934 for $122.68. Here, right now, it looks like we've done a great job because our balance is, even taking the 400 away, 1,264,345.78. But I believe that has something to do with inside knowledge. Cindy, if you would be so kind, explain how that works.
Yes, inside millage last year, all the houses were appraised, reevaluated. So when the appraisals go up on houses, the market, then the inside millage, which is 3.79 millage, inside millage is what Cleves gets. That goes up. If in 3 years, in 3 years, they reevaluate the homes and it goes down, that inside millage goes down. It's based on the house value. Is, don't go down. I don't want to scare you. No, hopefully it doesn't go down in 3 years. it did make a big increase, evaluations. We all know that. Every one of our houses went up. But that's how inside millage
In
works.
2008, we had a housing crash.
Yeah.
So that's not guaranteed money forever.
No,
Okay, so I want to make that point. And then when you take a look at, I'm going to skip over some of these things just for time. But you're going to take a look down here on where it says September 30th on salaries. I had her pull out the administrator salary. This is where Mike Rahal was in 2023 out of our general fund. This year, we see it's a lot less, but that's because of the fact that Mike retired and we've been doing some things in here that didn't cost. That's gonna start rising because Justin's only had one pay. And then you're gonna see the fiscal court. Cindy, I'd like you to sort of explain how that works with Penny and you and what you're doing and how much money you're saving per month because we've switched, away from paper.
right. Well, we used to hire a company to do all the cleaning of all the buildings, and now Penny does that, which is saving tons of money. And then I'm doing payroll now through you and Darren's. And we were paying, or village was paid for $400,000 or $500 a month for that service. That's my favorite part of my job, this payroll part of it, the filing, and that doesn't take long at all. So that's why when I found out the village was paid for that much a month, I'm like, no. And I'm still not even over my 15 hours. I don't even get close to 15 hours a week. So that's that part.
And so when you see where it says Jim, and that was Jim Brett, who was our
Which he
fiscal
did
officer.
both, right.
He did both. And then when you take a look at park employees, you're gonna see that price has gone up. Okay, and it certainly has, but also take a look at your revenue. Revenue has gone up significantly. And on the backside of I did this in handwriting, but I wanted you to sort of take a look at some things in here because of the fact that we are saving some money. But there's also some other issues that you need to look at because in 2023, it looked like council was doing a great job of not spending money. $476,968 in 2023, but there were $66,578 of unpaid bills. So in reality, they should have spent $543,546, but they didn't. So in 2024, we've spent $562,345, but we're paying last year's bills. So in reality, you'll see that we've actually spent less, not more. And that is with getting salary raises and actually getting more things done in the village. And when I say more things done, the cost, just for example, what John was talking about tonight, was a significant, we weren't spending any money on stormwater. We have to. We don't have a choice. EPA is going to make us because they now know we're not doing what we should have been doing. When you take a look at that park revenue, $8,042 up, the income is up, the salaries are up, but it's a significant gap of increase in income. And Daniel, I'd like you to explain a little bit how you go about managing that and different things you're doing this year versus last year.
Well, previously under Nelson Pressbuster, he had it to where you only charge soccer. No one else that comes in the park. You just get soccer strictly only. And he also didn't want any conflicts, so nothing came back to him. So he said if anyone gave us a hassle, don't charge them. And now that I have some authority, I've been able to put my foot down a little bit and say, well, I don't really care what you think you're paying to come through. So that's raised revenue and getting the BMX organization, if people going to our park to use it for whatever reason, we charge them. we keep better track of how much we sell. The passes are numbered. I have all that filed away on who sells what passes they were assigned, all of that. We're actually up higher
Which
than
we
that,
used to do, by the way.
which we're doing again now.
We used to do that
We're actually up another 2,000 from what that sheet shows.
when that was September 30th.
So we're up more than that, and I expect by the end of the year, we'll be more close to the 35,000 range, but we still have 3 to 4 weeks left between 2
But
weekends of tournaments.
their revenue is gonna go up too. There was revenues, not, this is just on September 30th.
Yeah. So park revenue will go up still a little bit more, but just having accountability and doing it the proper way generates us more money in the long run. If we can get more organizations in there, we can generate more money. Because we didn't collect it all in the spring. We didn't start till July 20th, I think, is when I was getting the green light. That was only 2 days a week when we started.
Okay, so I just want you to get a sense, a lot of times when you hear about, or you take a look at the sheets with columns after columns of different funds here, different funds there, the bottom line to me is our general fund. How are we doing general fund wise? Right now, we're doing okay. I have another update I want to give you very quickly, and that is about the bulk water fill station. You guys will remember we signed, first of all, you guys voted in council to agree to help out Miami Township. That was recommended by Jim Brett. And Jim Brett came back and said you guys didn't have the authority to do it. So then we came back and Rob signed a lease with them. I have ended that agreement. And I'm going to explain to you why I ended. Cleves got no benefit out of that at all. We're trying to help out the trustees. However, delay after delay after delay, every single time Jim Brett, our former fiscal officer, blamed the village of Cleves. Quite frankly, on September 4th, we did it again after multiple documents that I gave the trustees and him. I said, enough is enough. You're not blaming Cleves anymore. And when I say blaming Cleves, one of the statements he made, and I just watched the video, is, well, that's where the mayor wants it. The mayor never wanted anything but to help them. I didn't tell him what side. That was not chosen by me. He was actually chosen by Dan, right? So, in the most recent ones, he blamed Eric a couple times. Now he's moved on to Rusty. So, I had a discussion with Rusty this morning about 6:30 in the morning. And when he gave me his version of it, I said, enough's enough. I'm done. So there will be no bulk water fill station in the village of Cleves. We are going to continue to support their efforts to take fire protection up to their residents. And since Miami Township Fire Department is our fire department, their actual insurance ratings will improve, which should result in lower insurance ratings for our residents. So we are going to benefit from that. I want to move on to the Miami Township Fire Levy. I attended their ambassadors meeting on September 28th, and quite frankly, the information that I heard there was incomplete, not explained very well. Unfortunately, Cindy had the lead in the middle of it, but she had told them in advance that she would not be able to stay for the entire thing. So there's only one area I'm going to address because the question came up. You're moving all the cost of the chief, the fire chief, and the fringe benefits into the fire fund. I have no problem with that. But then a question is generated, why is it, are you gonna give a refund to your residents on the general fund? And there was no answer given by the trustees or Mr. Brett. I'm gonna give you what I think the answer is, Cindy. You can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. But you guys are gonna lose about $500,000 across every revenue you have in 2026. And as far as a levy, you guys did discuss a general fund levy, but I don't think that general fund levy has been increased in 55 years. or
Right, so
somewhere
that's
down
why
there.
we did that, so we're hoping that in 26, we don't have to.
Correct. And I want you to think that makes a lot of sense to me. And the reason it makes a lot of sense is if they were to put that on as a new levy, think what the valuations of property has gone up in 55 years. That would have been a horribly large loss. So I agree that that is a correct approach. Unfortunately, they didn't take the opportunity to explain that. I think it would have been helpful to do that. I also want to adjust the text alert system. I already mentioned that briefly. That letter has not been delivered to the downtown yet. It will be this weekend. Reload to the line also will be done the following week. We're going to send by regular mail the areas that are most difficult to litter, which is each state, some of the smaller side streets. And hopefully we're going to save money on mailing by doing it that way. And that's all I have for my mayor. But that leads us on to the rest of the agenda. And Cindy, I know you got.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
I am sorry. On the subject of communication, and what I gather of the text alert system sounds like a fine idea. In addition to having emails being able to send out. I don't think we've discussed too much the siren link, hearing council. I don't think Cleves had a huge part of communicating information to residents. It seemed like as soon as we got the information, it was already being pushed out by EMA. But one of the things I'd like to suggest is that we create village social media accounts for this reason. That whatever the virtues of your Three Rivers dispatch is your personal project, I don't believe it's the proper representation of the village and its communications.
I disagree.
So I don't know if we need to deliberate on this. It seems like this sort of, like you might want to have social media policies and who has access to what. You might want to formalize all that before you get started. But I think it's appropriate for administration in both of these forms and maybe even council at in certain circumstances to have access to that change. But I think we should make a change there. I'm glad you don't necessarily object. But I think that would have been a better look. I understand using it in that circumstance when it was the communication channel we had.
Well, I think the text alerts designed to get all kinds of information out. It wasn't just about, for example, the styrene ring. There were other things that were going on, like the post office being delayed, the garbage being delayed. Those were things that were not being discussed elsewhere. But what I'm getting from our residents is they like to have some concept of what's going on. And so like tonight's meeting, it's been out. I'm not doing any politicizing in that. And even in my dispatch, I don't. So, yes.
Kevin's point zero, in the safety committee, would there be a mechanism, correct me if I'm wrong, on the safety committee side, or Cleves could develop an area wide for Cleves?
Sure.
Like you were saying.
Well, my comment was strictly about having social media accounts. So we used to have two Village of Cleves Facebook and Village of Cleves Twitter. That's mostly what I'm talking about. I don't know that there's any, you as a person and you as a public figure can have your own account and put your own messages out there and nobody can stop you from, apart from illegal things to say, stop you from saying whatever you want. But for basic notifications, this meeting time is happening here, this event is happening, postal service is the way.
And I agree that needs to happen.
So I'm just talking opening as many channels as possible. So I don't know what you're asking about with the safety.
Isn't that what the text is doing though? The text that you send out?
What's that?
your text alerts that you can send out.
More importantly, so citizens know what's going on and when it's going on. But that can be done in multiple ways before county's far. And I agree with that. The more,
There's gonna
the
be plenty of
more
people that don't want
venues
that.
you have, and people make their own choices to where they're going to get that information. I think that's important. The text situation, is a quick way of getting information out, and I don't plan on using everything. I didn't send a text message out, for example, on the water main break on East Miami. And the reason I didn't is it didn't really apply to a large number of people. Okay, but there are Miami Township people who actually give those alerts. And I spoke with Karen Herbert today at the senior center. She was down in Florida and she goes, oh my God, she says, I had no idea any of this was going on. She says, that was very helpful for me and my family. Well, so I don't deny Miami Township residents if they want to know what's going on. I think they have a right to know. But I agree with you. I think Clay should have its own footprint, whether that's, I'm not a Twitter person, so I don't do Twitter. The other people do. So should we or shouldn't we have it? I'm open to any of that.
Well, maybe let's work offline to find some social media policies and bring that before us.
Other things we do.
I'm not gonna suggest that go to the top of the file. I just want to put it somewhere in.
I'm gonna
I'll
suggest
put the
that,
fee schedules on our Twitter.
I'm gonna suggest that our ordinances go to the top of the pile on council. The important business of running the village is being left to, our number,
I understand.
4.
We'll make sure that's changed when.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, so let's go on to Cindy. You've got resolution 31 dash.
Right, all this happens, we've done it for years. Yep. This is something we get from the county, the council just has to approve, you're accepting the rates, the levies that are, if you looked in there, it has your levies, the continuing. So all you're doing is verifying at this, and I just got this, 2 weeks ago. So and then we have to have it turned in by October 24th that you're accepting these rates in your millage and your.
We did it every year for 18 years.
Right, it's just something you gotta do.
It is standard housekeeping.
I looked at them, I looked at the rates, it matched what you had later.
Yeah, we definitely want to pass this, and I will definitely make a motion to adopt resolution 31, 2024, accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Do we need to do?
It's a resolution, so.
So we need to do the spending of the.
No.
Not resolution.
Okay, very good.
My question is, do we need to fill it out?
We will.
All right, so we have a motion.
right there.
We have a motion to accept resolution 31 dash 2024. Motion is made by Ms. Bolton. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Babel. Any further discussion? Any call to roll?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Ms. Babel, or Mr. Babel, sorry.
Yeah.
And it looks to me, unless I missed something.
Parks,
We gotta do that next. That will be the last thing.
because they wanna get paid.
Motion to approve resolution number 32, 2024, increasing the appropriations of the Parks Fund in the amount of $5,000 and increase the revenue by $5,000.
Based on what we had budgeted, yes.
Is this just bookkeeping?
Yes, yes.
We made some extra money, so we have to say that it's appropriated.
Yeah, because I don't have the appropriation to pay their salaries, because those went up. So I have,
Yeah,
we have
this is
normal,
Words.
this is, I have to, yeah.
Yeah, we went above what was originally budgeted, and you
It's a
have
good
to ask for permission to appropriate that money.
It is actually a good.
Second.
Who was our first?
Yeah, who was the first? I'll make the motion.
The motion by Mr. Bolton, second by Mr. Walters. Any further discussion? Betty, you call the roll.
Mr. Burns, Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, and we only have one thing left, that is a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No.
There's more?
Did we do anything with ordinance number 10, approving and allocating 29,000? For where to be before?
Yeah, you did that.
I leave early.
That was my fault.
All right.
We have one
I
left.
just wanted to make sure.
Who's making the motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Walters. Do I have a second?
Yes, so moved.
Second by Mr. Bolton. And further discussion. All roll.
Mr. Burns, Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel.
Bagel.
Oh, yes, okay.
Can you make your answer?
I guess it's 10 o'clock. It's, council's very excited.
I do anything.